but he lies, but I still hope she won't lie to me. I think I'd rather lie to myself than be lonely.
Hello. I am Desma. I go by the online alias Destiny Smasher. I am here today with my girlfriend Jenny, who goes by Mollifiable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, should I be like, hi?
Sure. We are also joined by Riley Hawke.
Hi.
As you might be able to tell, we might be a little rusty or inexperienced with our podcasting. It's been a long time since I've done one. Yeah. This podcast does not have a name yet, but if it is a thing that we continue doing, we will probably have to come up with one of some sort.
And jazzy opening themes and things like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe not.
So we'll start with Riley, because you're the guest we have today. What is your deal? What do you do on the internets?
Well, lately, like the past year and a half or so, I've been doing a lot of original music based on Life is Strange.
Yes, and it has been very good, and I've been enjoying it quite a lot.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Jenny?
I draw sad price-filled drawings. Mostly. Sometimes other things too, but mostly that.
Mostly sad price-filled drawings?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I also like those a lot.
That's good.
And I have been writing a Pricefield fanfic called All Wounds, and am very slowly getting around to adapting it to a visual novel format. So we are all three different fields of creators who care a lot about Life is Strange stuff and Pricefield things. And we are here today to talk about our thoughts on the first episode of Life is Strange Before the Storm, which was developed by Deck 9 and published by Square Enix. Kind of a preface for people listening who might not know. Most of you probably know, but Before the Storm is being made by a completely different development team. There are some people who helped work on Life is Strange who are also involved with Before the Storm. My understanding of that is mainly it's folks on the Square Enix side of things, which I didn't really know until I started researching Before the Storm more in depth. But apparently there are people at Square Enix who will get kind of, I guess, inserted in a way into the development teams of some of the games they publish and help out a bit. So there's a level designer, I think, from Square Enix who helped work on Life is Strange and is also helping on Before the Storm. But for all intents and purposes, it's a different development team, which has been kind of a big deal. So all three of us have played the first episode. So right now it is the beginning of October, so episode 2 has not come out. We are anticipating episode 2 probably will come out sometime this month. We'll see. So Riley, have you played episode 1 once or more than once, or?
Yeah, I just played through it once.
Okay.
Although I did because I made a video with a bunch of clips from the game, so I did go back and watch a bunch of the scenes, at least a couple more times.
Gotcha. Have you made one song based off Before the Storm, or 2?
I wrote one original song, and then I also did a cover of a Daughter song, and that was the one that had the Life is Strange fan video kind of with it.
Right, nice. Yeah, because they had I think they have 2 of the 3 people from the band Daughter have been composing music for the game.
I mean, they just credit the whole band, but
yeah.
They showed 2 of them.
They've shown 2 of them.
I feel like it's probably the whole band that
okay.
worked on it if they're going to use their name, right? But,
yeah. Which they did a similar thing with the first game with
Sid Matters, but it wasn't. It was Jonathan Morelli.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how you say it. So it
was
I think
just... he composed a lot of
music.
Yeah,
he composed original music.
Yeah.
So he was part of Sid Matters?
Yeah, is that a band, or is that just his stage name? I'm not entirely certain.
Yeah, sometimes a single person will use a name, will be in their own band, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I forget, yeah, but...
So yeah, so similar idea with the music behind the first game, which is they hired on an indie musician and then also included a lot of that.
Yeah, because originally they contacted him to just ask to use Obstacles, I guess, or the first song from the game, which is the name of which I forget. But yeah, there's 2 of those songs in the game, and he ended up being like, hey, I want to make music for this because this is such a cool idea, I guess.
Cool.
That's what I heard. Cool. Yeah, because I went to see the BAFTA question and answer session with some of the developers from Don't Nod, and that's the story they told at that session.
Oh,
so.
Nice. Yeah. But yeah, so Riley has played through the episode once and some change. Me and Jenny have played through it twice. I played through it once, we did a live stream, and then you played it twice.
I did like opposite kind of choices most of the time. I tried to play it a bit more, I guess with Chloe being a bit more reserved, I suppose, towards Rachel.
As nice as Chloe can be.
Yeah, nice but awkward and reserved.
Oh, that's true, because when I played through, I tried being more flirty and forward with Rachel.
Which kind of reflects our personalities.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So I guess to start off, I feel like maybe we should talk a little bit about kind of leading up to the release of this episode. Riley, did you hear, like, were you kind of involved at all, like, when the leaks happened back in, like, June? Or no?
I think I remember you posting something about that, and that's how I became aware of it.
Okay.
But didn't they announce the game pretty shortly after the leaks came out?
Yeah, it was like maybe a couple weeks after. They announced it at E3. Like, that's how it got leaked, is the developer of the game was starting to get their website together, in anticipation of the game being announced at E3, but they kind of stuck up stuff a little bit too soon.
Yeah, it seemed a bit like they'd been using it as storage space, because there was stuff that I don't think they meant.
There was stuff that we weren't supposed to see, yeah.
So yeah, and then someone clearly snooped and found that by chance, maybe? Or maybe they knew, I don't know, we don't know what happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was by chance so much as people who care a lot about Life is Strange were like, ooh,
that
this seems suspicious. Yeah. Well, so leading up to before E3, the developer, Deck 9, announced that they were working on a very story-focused game with a, well-known publisher, or something to that effect. And so some people were wondering, like, what that could mean. Some people had already kind of guessed maybe they're doing Life is Strange. And then once their website went up, it was quickly taken down because it got data mined and people found stuff that we weren't supposed to see. Like, there were some photographs of people on the development team in front of whiteboards, and whiteboards had things like endings of the game written on it. So, so I guess we'll see how much of that turns out to be true.
I don't remember a lot of what was actually on the whiteboards, which I feel pleased about now.
Yeah, that's probably good. I remember because I'm me, and I remember those kinds of things.
I kind of vaguely remember what it might have been, but I also feel like that's not necessarily what they're going to try and move towards.
Because that would have been like more pre-production stuff, probably.
Yeah, it seemed like they were experimenting with ideas, and there was a lot still out in the open.
Yeah.
Wait, is that the phrase?
Yeah, out in the open.
Up in the air, I think was the phrase I was trying to go for. Not out in the open. That's a different thing.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, well. but yeah, so when you first saw that leak, Riley, how did you feel about it? What did you think?
I guess, like, I with the leak, you never know if it's real or not. So, I think it was nice that it got pretty quickly resolved as, like, people confirmed they're making the game. But I just kind of, I didn't think too much of it. I was like, well, we'll see.
Yeah. Unlike us, we kind of freaked out.
Yeah,
I freaked out.
You were really suspicious of it.
I was really suspicious.
I was like, there's no way this is like a prank. This is real. Like, no one's put this much, attention to detail into a thing. And,
No, so what I was really suspicious about was I was not at all happy with the idea of it being a real thing.
It was
we were.
Why is this a thing? Why is Donald not making it?
Yeah. Yep. We were both suspicious that Don't Nod didn't seem connected to it, and that it was what it seemed to be, which was a prequel about Chloe and Rachel.
Yeah.
At the time, there was a lot of dispute. Well, I don't know if dispute. There was a lot of conversation going on in the fandom at the time of, like, are we going to be playing as Chloe or Rachel? Which I thought was kind of an interesting thing to talk about. We also saw one of the leaked images was a scene from the end of episode 1, which was the burning tree.
Yeah, the concept art.
So, yeah, but you couldn't really tell exactly who was standing in front of the tree.
What was going
or exactly what was going on. But I thought that was kind of neat that we kind of already had that image of that burning tree before we played the episode.
Well, yeah, because there's things like that from the first game as well, though. I feel like we have the concept art for like Max in the street, in the storm.
With the bus
really
flying
early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So...
Or the train. I remember seeing the concept art of Max and Chloe in front of the train, like before the first episode came out. Because that was like one of the...
That's more likely because that's like episode 2 stuff.
Yeah, that's episode 2.
That was kind of bundled together. But...
Yeah. But yeah, so we were both kind of stressed out about it. So yeah, but like you said, it was nice that it got resolved pretty quickly. It was only like maybe a couple of weeks between when it got leaked to when it got formally announced. I thought it was kind of neat how, because we actually watched the Microsoft conference live, didn't we?
Yeah, we didn't know it was going to be in the Microsoft one. We thought
we had no idea.
Maybe be among the others.
Yeah.
So it was a surprise to see that come up, I guess.
Yeah.
It was cool to watch that be
yeah.
revealed.
I feel like we figured it out like very quickly, like within like 1 or 2 shots. We were like,
oh no,
it's Life is Strange.
As soon as you
like,
just heard the
you could just
tone of it, and then
we could just recognize like what it was, and we
Yeah.
were like, oh shit, it's real.
Yeah.
And then they also showed off after it was announced. They had like a 20-minute chunk of like 3 scenes? It was 3 different scenes from episode 1, kind of segmented to kind of show like this is what the game looks like.
Right, yeah, but they didn't show. They kind of showed a bit of the exploration of the mill, and then they kind of. I feel like they talked over the Chloe and Rachel scene a lot. I don't think we got.
Oh, up
that.
at the Overlook or whatever.
But the junkyard scene.
Oh yeah.
We didn't see that with sound for a little while, but
yeah.
It was very edited, I guess.
It was. There were definitely... Well, and I think it was probably good because there were some notable story things that actually do happen in the episode that didn't happen in that preview, and they were just edited pretty well where you couldn't actually tell that something was missing necessarily.
Yeah.
Did you watch... I assume you probably didn't watch that footage. Did you, Riley?
No, I did actually.
Okay.
I was kind of like... I kind of wished I hadn't watched it in a way. It seemed like it was like, I mean, this episode like it was actually pretty long, but they showed so much gameplay. I'm like, oh my god, like is this going to be boring? Like, do I already know everything's going to happen? But you're right, they did kind of leave out a lot of that story stuff. So it was a pleasant surprise playing the episode that there was still like a lot that we hadn't seen.
Yep. Yeah, that was definitely a pleasant surprise. I was worried when because they showed off the 20-minute footage and they showed.
Too much. I felt like we don't need to see this because we know what kind of game this is going to be. Anyone who's played Life is Strange would know.
Yeah.
You know what the feel of it was going to be. I think it's interesting they didn't show off the backtalk feature.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the new things in the game where I'm like, yeah, that would be interesting to have had a bit of a preview of to get a feel for what would be different.
I think did they show that with David or no? Because they showed like that 10 minutes later on.
No, they didn't. They showed the bit later on. They didn't. They stopped it when you do the. Does he ask for a high five or something?
Oh, the fist bump.
Fist bump. Yeah, that's it.
They stopped after that part in the other footage they showed. Yeah, but it was the summer was kind of crazy because after the game was real and announced and like we knew. It's not Don't Nod. Don't Nod's not involved. The voice actors aren't coming back.
Yeah, there was a lot of anxiety around that.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, it's hard to not have mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Especially as a creative person, that concept of, something you've developed being kind of taken out of your hands and taken away from you and given to someone else. There's a lot of, there was a lot of worry about how is this going to be handled and how is this going to turn out. But, I mean, we'll get to feelings on that later.
Yeah. Riley, leading up to the release of that first episode, like, did you follow any of that kind of news, like with the voice actor strike and, with it being a different dev team? What did you think about all that?
It kind of, when they very first announced the prequel, I was kind of excited, and then you start to kind of learn, like, so, like, all the voice actors are going to be different, especially Ashley Birch, Chloe, that's, like, such a big one.
Yeah.
And so that was, like, a little bit disappointing, and I don't know, I kind of wasn't sure what to expect with the episode at all.
Yeah.
I don't think I worried about it maybe as much as you guys did. But
yeah, it's probably a good thing.
But yeah, I definitely wasn't like over the moon excited about it because I was very aware that it might not be that good. So
yeah, it's so interesting thing with Deck 9 is this first episode was their first software release as Deck 9. They have not the people at this game studio have developed games before, but never this kind of game. They've worked on I think snowboarding games in the past. And just kind of miscellaneous kind of stuff like that. Not anything that was newsworthy or groundbreaking necessarily. And basically what happened was they decided to do some refocusing, and they built a gameplay engine that they call StoryForge.
Yeah, it's not an engine because they're using Unity for the engine.
Oh, right. I keep forgetting that.
I don't know if it's a plugin or not, but it's designed to help with the structuring of scenes and choices and the way that different world states are linked together, I guess. From dialogue choices and stuff. Which is interesting. I'd definitely like to see more of that in behind the scenes videos and stuff. But,
yeah, maybe we'll see more of that. But yeah, this is their first software launch as Deck 9. They've been working on Before the Storm since 2016. So it's been about a year, maybe a little more. I'm not sure, but so it's all kind of all new stuff for them. I think that they maybe weren't quite ready for some of the for as big as the fandom around this game is. for example, their website got leaked before the game was announced because I think they just weren't expecting anyone to be looking around at their website, stuff
especially
like
at
that.
Point, because they
hadn't announced anything yet. Yeah, but they seem to be handling things pretty well from what I've seen. I've been in contact with a couple members of the dev team, and they seem to be fairly good about getting back. They're making a game still, so they're very busy, but I've still gotten replies from the people I've been in touch with over there. So they seem like they are a lot more responsive than a lot of other game developers that I've tried touching base with. So that's been cool. They seem very appreciative of the passion of the fandom and whatnot. But yeah, it's in regards to it being a whole different development studio, something that's kind of important from my perspective on the whole situation is that Don't Nod doesn't seem involved. There are things that I've been told that I can't necessarily talk about, but the gist of what I've seen and observed and heard seems to be that in general Don't Nod didn't really want this to get made, and Square decided to go forward and make it anyway because they own the rights to the intellectual property, and so basically, and this I'm pretty sure is generally public knowledge, but Square had Don't Nod kind of compile a bunch of files with all the original games info, all their notes on the stories of the characters and their backstories and all that, and had transferred it to Square, who then transferred it to Deck 9, so Deck 9 had access to all this info on stuff from the first game. I would assume all the assets for the character models and a lot of the environmental things and whatnot. But from Deck 9's perspective, I can imagine it's probably been conflicting to be working on this thing where you're taking this other development team's characters and world and adding your own stuff to it, and you aren't in contact with them because from what I can tell they haven't. The two development teams, they seem like they're on good terms with each other as development teams, but it doesn't look like they've really been in contact.
No.
Which has been kind of...
And I wonder, there's probably some level of language barrier going on there a little bit as well, but I know that obviously there's one or two people who have worked with both teams, on both games. So, but it's strange from an outside perspective to see that kind of slight disconnect, I guess.
Yeah, but all that considered, I think that from what we played of episode 1, it seemed like despite all the kind of awkwardness getting to where they got to, I feel like the development team, Deck 9, seems to have some good heads on their shoulders and seem to be definitely capable of creating that kind of game.
Yeah.
When, like, both me and Jenny were very anxious and stressed leading up, like, just through the whole summer, really. But, like, I remember when we were getting ready to play episode 1 for the first time, I was just really stressed out. Like, oh no, I'm not sure if I'm gonna... What if the voice acting is just horrible, and what if the writing is just really fan servicey and, like, all this stuff. But fortunately, those... I feel like everything kind of generally came together better than I was anticipating it.
Yeah, there are a lot of aspects of Before the Storm that were surprisingly good, surprisingly kind of took things from the original game and like developed them.
Yeah.
Even though, there are some things that still have issues with, minor issues with things, and just the existence of that, as a prequel is a little bit weird. But yeah, there are things like the animation, the like facial animation that really have brought it, I guess, to life in certain ways that just the first game didn't have the time, didn't have the ability to do. So it's really interesting to see how Deck 9 have like made the most of like having that story to like explore that kind of adventure game sort of thing for the first time.
When going into episode 1, Riley, how were you feeling? Like, as when the episode came out, like, did you play it right away? Did you wait a little bit?
We played it the first weekend that it came out, so it was like, it wasn't like the day that it came out, but it was like pretty soon after it came out that we played it. It was fun, to sit down and see like the new loading screen, like, okay, because the first game was such a nice memory and everything, and so to kind of feel like you're going back to that world was really great. And that's I think that's something that they did really well. It felt like a Life is Strange game, the environments and the characters and stuff.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely did. Was there anything in particular when you played through it the first time that like stood out, like in terms of something that maybe like surprised you?
Surprised me, I guess, like the mechanic of like the backtalk stuff. That was kind of like, whoa, because I wasn't expecting them to have anything like that, frankly. I was I was expecting it to be Life is Strange without time travel powers.
Yeah.
And that's it, So for them to at least try to put something kind of fun and gamey in there was pretty cool. I think the other thing that pleasantly surprised me was the tabletop game.
Yeah.
Like, that I was like, what? Like that it was in there and it was so long and it was so much fun. That was really cool too.
Yep, that seems like that was a big takeaway for a lot of people, us included.
Yeah, especially the use of the characters in that scene as well.
Yeah.
That, if you'd tried to use existing characters from Life is Strange in the same scene, I'm not sure it would have had quite the same effect, because that's one of the things that was really intriguing about that courtyard scene was Deck 9's original characters.
Yeah.
And, as interesting as the Dungeons and Dragons like premise was, and the way that they used the choice system to kind of, construct that, just like Steph and Mikey just seemed like cool characters. So it made you interested, like, I want to befriend these.
Yeah, I think that in a lot of ways, I feel like that little sequence with the Dungeons and Dragons game was maybe, at least for me, I think that might have been the strongest part of that episode, because for one, it was doing something with that format of game that I haven't seen done before in that kind of way. Like, you're playing a choice-based game in a choice-based game, right. which made making the choices feel more organic, less artificial. But simultaneously, you are using that scene to express your interpretation of Chloe as a character in terms of her relations with other people. Like, is she more aggressive and a loner? Is she still trying to get along with other people?
Is she kind of awkward? It's like, even with the choice of, like, the name of the character and stuff, right. She can kind of be like, I don't know. Or she can be like, oh, I'm going to be this, sweet barbarian elf lady and I know my name and stuff. It's that choice.
Yeah.
Between...
So they had that going on, and then on top of that, you are getting to know these two different characters who are brand new, who you have no prior experience with. So it's doing multiple things all at the same time. And I feel it kind of makes me wish that in the first game we had gotten to know some of those characters through something other than just having a single conversation with one character and then walking over a few feet and having a separate mini conversation with a separate character.
That really starts to show in certain scenes in
the first game,
because we just played through.
Episode 4
in
again,
Japanese,
yeah.
And there are points of that, like the courtyard outside the boys' dormitories, and then in the Vortex Club. All of those conversations are just like one after another, and each one has like a few things to choose from to ask about, and they're not very dynamic. It's not really an interesting flow, in my opinion. So I think that when it comes to socializing, it's better to not try and cram in a bunch of these like disconnected conversations. It's better to have, groups of characters together and then try and sort of weave a scenario out of that. That just feels like a more organic way of doing things. Like if you're at school, right? If you're at school and you're not gonna just go up to like one person at a time and be like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? You're gonna go up to a big group of people and be like, so what's the dynamic here and what can I kind of put into this?
Something that I did also really like about that scene was that not only were we getting to meet these new characters, but it was in a group. It was a group setting. You had 3 characters in a conversation instead of just 2. Yeah. They also just seemed like fun characters. Like, I want to get to know those characters more. I want Steph and Mikey to have something plot related in episode 2 or 3. Like, I want them to have some kind of plot importance, which seemed like maybe they're implying something like that will happen with Mikey's older brother. Yeah. But whereas the interactions with characters we already knew just weren't that interesting to me. like interacting with Victoria and Evan. There was also Miss Grant, wasn't there?
Yeah, but again, that's still symptomatic of that, going to each one and then
one at a time and just
and it gets a bit draining after a while. So.
Like I feel like if you're going to have these callbacks to these characters, then the whole point would be you're learning something new about them, and I felt like I wasn't learning anything new about them. Like, it felt more like they were just kind of there because, well, this is a prequel, we're obligated to include some of these characters you already know. Whereas it just was inherently more interesting to have those new characters because we learned new things about them because we don't know them yet.
Yeah. There's still that intrigue. And like with a lot of the kind of minor characters in Life is Strange, there wasn't that much intrigue. It was just like, this is the stoner guy, this is the skateboarder,
this is the girl who has it out for Max because the boy that she likes Max. That's her entire role.
There's no chance to like push that to anything else.
Right? Yeah. So I am hopeful that we will get to see another Dungeons and Dragons sequence, at least in episode 2. Depending on where they go with episode 3, it might not be appropriate. If the story ramps up to a more serious place, but it would still be cool.
I'm thinking about it, I'd like to just see that format applied to other scenes and other conversations. And as much as I want to see Dungeons and Dragons scenes, in each episode, I just want to see groups of characters who have an interesting kind of way of interacting with them, and they bounce off each other as well as Chloe.
Well, and the other thing too is that since the whole premise of this prequel is we're focusing on Chloe and Rachel, I want to see Chloe and Rachel as a pair interacting with other people, and we don't really get any of that. Now, to be fair, you don't really get a lot of that with Max and Chloe. But you get a decent amount of it over the 5 episodes,
with Chloe's family and with Frank and with there's not a lot of that. It's often like Max and Blackwell is separate to Chloe and Chloe's stuff, but there a lot of the interesting moments in the first game with those interactions between characters were because you'd have Max and Chloe in the same place, in the same conversation as someone else, so you could kind of see how the dynamic between Max and Chloe is different when they're talking with Joyce versus when they're talking with David versus when they're talking with Frank. So I'm kind of hoping we get a little bit of that with these next 2 episodes of Before the Storm, because there seems to be a big focus on the way that Rachel interacts with people in general, and what her motivations are as a character, what it is that she's... This is the thing about Rachel, is that, she's supposed to be this, chameleon type person who can be just perfect. No matter who she's talking to, she's going to be the right kind of personality to befriend them. And I wonder how they're gonna, if they do a lot of conversations with Chloe and Rachel and other people, how they're gonna show that, and if that's gonna be a thing where Chloe gets to see that in action and then it starts to change her opinion of things or what,
Yeah.
I don't know. But we'll see. I guess it depends just what the plot of episode 2 is going to be like. If they're going to be at schools, or if they're going to, Chloe's going to get kicked out, if the fire thing is going to be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, a little side note there, on the fire thing, there are like a couple of, there's like 2 or 3 maybe references in the original game to Chloe being involved in something with fire.
Did we see any of them in episode 3?
I think we saw maybe 1. Like, I'd have to go back and look them up, but there's like a cop that makes a reference to it. Joyce makes some kind of reference to it, and I think one other, like maybe Nathan or somebody.
I feel like at one point Chloe's like, I want to burn this place
well,
down.
yeah,
She says
yeah,
like that, but,
yeah. But, trying to think of what other side characters there were besides Rachel. There was Skip, security guy.
Oh yeah, the mixtape guy. Oh, not mixtape. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, the like indie band
What
dude.
do you call it? Demo. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Demo tape.
What did you make of that interaction, Riley?
It was kind of refreshing. It was like a little bit interesting, and I thought it was, you can kind of foresee that Skip. I didn't actually remember that was his name, so I'll just forget that's his name.
It's a good name for him if it's not.
Quit his job, and then Samuel will, get the job after that. So.
Oh yeah, because was he the?
Maybe I'm
the custodian or Skip the security?
I thought he was the security guy.
Yeah, I think so. Isn't it?
No, I didn't mean Samuel. Yeah, David.
Oh, did you mean David? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering about that too. Because, like, I mean, with a private school like that, you would need more than one security guy, but you wouldn't necessarily mean you wouldn't need a whole lot of them.
Right, because we saw, I'm forgetting, but there's a point in Life is Strange where there's definitely another security guard, and it's not David, but,
Oh yeah, when you're trying to, when they're running out of the swimming pool area, there's at least one other guy there, so yeah.
But yeah, that feels like it could build up. I mean, it feels a bit obvious in some ways where it's like you can see that being foreshadowed just the moment you talk to him, but it's refreshing to have, I don't know, I guess because David was under such suspicion, throughout a lot of Life is Strange, you just had that kind of antagonistic view of him, relationship with him from the start. It's nice to just have this kind of character who's quite like, check out my demo tape, but, I'm cool.
Yeah, it was
same role, basically.
It was cool to see like this adult character who just seemed to get along with the students.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be a thing at that school. Is a lot of the students don't get along as well.
It's more important as well because it's Chloe. It's Chloe's time at the school. If there's this like really sort of oppressive figure in that role while she's there, that's going to cause a different dynamic and more problems. Maybe. You just change what the writers can do with that story. It's maybe nicer to have a more lax sort of security thing going on whilst Chloe's there at this point in the story. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, it might be that David comes in at the as we get in if she stays in school. It just seemed like
because David needed a job, that was like
right. Oh yeah, that was brought up as well. They they
did foreshadow a little bit too.
Then that's. I mean, they could still subvert it somehow, but that's that's going to happen eventually. So.
Who else what other... Well, we do have, because the game opens at the old mill, so one of your first interactions is with that. There's a bouncer guy.
Yeah, there's the dog betting kind of stuff going on, but that's,
Seems to be setting up Frank and Pompidou.
Yeah, which I want to see. I want to see Pompidou. I love dogs. But, that's the first kind of, that back talk challenge is like one of the first... That's one of the first conversations. I don't think you can talk to the betting people, can you?
I think you're right.
Tell you to go away.
Yeah, they just tell you. Yeah, they tell you
off. You don't even talk to them because Chloe's like thinking and standing right there, and we were like, "That's weird," that she's just standing there
right spying on them. And then he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Leave us alone. Mind your own business."
Yeah, but it's interesting the way the backtalk works. That you can fail it, and there's no immediate consequence because you can still progress the story each time in the same way. It's whether or not that's just how that builds up, like whether failing that ends up being more significant, having these kind of cumulative consequences on Chloe's character, maybe on like her confidence. I'm wondering about that. If she doesn't pass all of these challenges, then maybe it's going to affect
how she acts,
how she can act, or what choices you have.
That would be
whereas
interesting.
if you pass all of them, because initially it just seems to have that consequence that Rachel says different things at the end of the episode, and she still compliments you either way.
Yeah.
It seems. But like that, I think it'd be interesting if they really did something with the protagonist character where it gives you more confidence on, more anxiety or whatever.
Yeah. There seem to be because we've played through it twice, and I've seen bits and pieces of like a couple other playthroughs. They seem to be doing a better job of weaving in things that Chloe can do or learn or whatever that can impact something else later without like beating you over the head with it. Like in the first game, it makes sense because whenever Max is learning something, it's so she can ask someone else about it and then maybe rewind and like whatever. But there's a few instances in this one, at least just in this first episode, where you might have a conversation with someone or learn something or find something in the environment, and it's not as immediately apparent what that might affect later on, but it can affect something later on.
I don't think does the Joyce self-help thing. It doesn't even come up with this will have consequences, does it?
Yeah, I don't think it did.
But it does at the end.
Like you can use this later or something.
Oh, maybe we just didn't see that.
If you read the self-help book.
Because it says at the end, on the end screen, you looked through Joyce's drawer or something. It does say that in the end screen, but I don't remember the thing flashing up.
I don't remember it happening. We might have been distracted, who knows?
But we looked at that, and then later on, during the Dungeons and Dragons scene, you use it, like Chloe uses that same phrase that she learns in that self-help book to like...
if you choose to have her try and encourage Mikey.
Yeah.
Then she will pull...
Only in that situation, and that's something that you wouldn't necessarily... do, because the obvious path in that game, or the one that you think, this is the best path, is to go through each way, and then if you pick the right things, you won't even see that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that such a minor thing is sort of weaved in.
Yeah.
That really makes it feel more alive, I think.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Good stuff.
What else? How did you feel, Riley, about the scene at Chloe's house with Joyce and David?
I kind of remember being a bit like confused and let down by the conversation with Joyce. It seemed like I mean that whole bit, like a lot of this game kind of felt like a lot of stuff we already knew. Just kind of rehashing it, which was like it's okay. But I think for me especially the conversation with Joyce was kind of like that, and then it was just a bit weird. Like I think there's that choice you can make to either like be nice to Joyce and be like, okay, I'll try, or like, say, like, I hate David or something like that. And it's just like the sort of like emotional journey that both of them were going through together seemed like really just unintuitive to me. I found myself being like confused by their interaction. And then with David, it was like he was such a douchebag. Like, wow, like they kind of go, not to great lengths, but by the end of Life is Strange, you kind of, David is sort of redeemed. He's like, you kind of like David, and then back to this game, I'm just blown away by like how awful he was. Like, wow, like of course Chloe hated him. I would have never expected that he would have like said some of the stuff that he said. Yeah,
it is weird because coming from the first game, you play this one, and you're like, you at least have a better idea of, even if you don't like David, by the end of that game, like, you are meant to understand, like, his motivations, why he's doing the things that he's doing, and at least make some sense of his behavior. But with this, it's like, it's a lot harder to get that, and something that is kind of weird to me is... I actually like a lot of what he has to say to Chloe in the car if you don't, if you like fail the back talk. He actually like gives some like pretty, it's him, so he's still like, he's a little too pushy with it. But he gives Chloe some like pretty like down to earth, like, your mom is dealing with shit, you're dealing with shit, we need you to kind of try and work with us here. Like the situation isn't good, but you need to kind of pull yourself together a little bit, if only for your mom's sake, kind of thing. And I liked seeing David like try to convey this kind of more open, kind of blunt, you need to get your act together. Like on the one hand, like he is a douche. Like I'm no denying that he does not act like.
Yeah, it's such a.
as much of an adult as I would hope for. But
two feelings about that, because
Yeah.
like when you're presenting this sort of dynamic between a teenage girl and this like authority figure,
Yeah.
like man kind of in her house, I'm always a little bit on edge about the portrayal of that, and you can sometimes, I don't know, make David a bit too goofy, or kind of soften him in a way where it's like, so why is Chloe reacting like this if he's not this sort of treating her in this way, if she doesn't have, you know, reason to respond like that. I think that there's kind of real world feelings kind of feeding into that, but I don't like David, at all in Life is Strange. By the end of the game, I'm still like, no, that guy's a douche. He shouldn't have, he's wrong. I can see why, I can see his motivations, and he makes sense as a character, but I don't like him as a character.
He like goes and saves them at the end. So that's probably
does.
Yeah, I mean that to me, like, I wouldn't say I like him either, but
oh yeah, it's like
that to me was like, he did a good thing. His heart's in the right place.
I feel like, when he's in the dark room, the moment where he kind of is, I want to say redeemed, but I don't want to say redeemed. But there's a moment where I kind of soften towards him, which is if you tell him that Chloe is dead, I think, in the dark room, and he absolutely breaks down, and I'm like, well, now you get that real sense, but you don't have to see that. Sometimes you don't even see that in a playthrough, but there is that real raw sense in that scene that, like, he gets it now, and like, if only this had been, it didn't take this much to get that kind of understanding, kind of emotion from him. So that it changes, I mean, I can see that layer of, okay, who cares, but it's so weird because in Before the Storm, it's like, it's that thing we were talking about where it's like, you don't necessarily know these things about David. Someone could be playing this game and to have not seen any of this in Life is Strange, they can not have a clue who David is.
Yeah.
And you can go into that first kind of argumentative Joyce scene with no knowledge about that at all, and Chloe's reaction is always, "Grr, I hate David," and it's weird because that scene feels like it should be about Joyce and Chloe, and
right, and it ends up being about David.
It's immediately like, this is just Chloe hating on David before we even get context for that.
Yeah.
In Life is Strange, you have several scenes of context of who David is.
Right, before you have a conversation with Joyce.
Yeah, before you have a conversation with Joyce, before you talk to Chloe about it, before you know that that's Chloe's stepdad. So I think that you get a strange perspective, if you're playing, when you're playing Before the Storm, if you haven't played the first game or if it's been a while, those scenes don't always flow properly.
Yeah.
I think, or you can have very variable feelings about that character. And that's an interesting, when you're having to write or construct, scenes in a prequel and you don't know quite the perspective that the audience is coming from, and you're not really spending time to put that in place again. I think that can lead to some jarring interactions, and that's maybe one of the reasons that Joyce scene feels so slightly flawed and slightly it doesn't hit the mark.
Yeah.
Because Chloe's coming from a very different place to the player.
Yeah.
It's interesting with the like, when you make a choice-based game like this, and then everybody has a slightly different experience when you play it, and it can impact how they see different characters. And then you go make a new game, and you have to kind of set it up, and you don't even know what's already been set up because you don't know, what kind of experience the players had last game.
Yeah, and I mean, the point of a game like this, I feel, is to try and get the player to be in the same mindset as the protagonist, to try and, show them the world through the protagonist's eyes, which I think is something like The Last of Us does that, even if it doesn't make you change your own personal morality or your opinions about what choice you would make in the same situation, it shows you why the protagonist, does the things that he does. So I feel like, with Before the Storm, with anything that either of these teams does in the same genre, you have to keep that in mind, like, constantly at each point, at each scene, like, so what mindset is this character in, and what mindset is the audience going to be in? Have we justified things enough?
And what things can we do to make those 2 points join together better? Yeah. I agree with you, Riley, about the Joyce conversation. I feel like both of us over here were kind of like, I did feel, when I played that the first time, I did feel a little confused.
To it, really strongly. You were like, what? That's not right. And I think I reacted a little bit less strongly because I liked the core concept of it, which is that thing between being honest, with how you feel, but being very, like, kind of blunt and very emotional, versus trying to be nice to Joyce, because that can go interesting places. That in itself, that whole...
In concept,
In concept, it can go,
yeah.
but the execution was weird. But,
yeah.
I did like that.
It felt like no matter what you choose, like how you choose to express Chloe's character, they still end up like in this more hostile, argumentative place. And like, I guess what they're going for from that is like, Chloe's not in a good place, and she's arguing with her mom.
Give that option of be nice, be understanding,
right?
If she's not going
to, yeah. Like that whole sequence was interesting to me because I felt like the reason why it existed was to try and give context for the player as to why Chloe is, feeling and acting the way she is, specifically with regard to her home life. And I felt like, as someone who's already played the first game, there was nothing new there. It was all like a retread, and it was also just kind of very pessimistic in a way to be like, oh, so stuff was already this bad 3 years ago, and I already know it only gets worse. So like, what motivation, like what interest, where are the stakes, where's the motivation for me to care when I already know this doesn't get better? Which we'll get back to that later, I guess, as a general concept, but then the other element of it is, if this is your first time playing this game, I feel like a lot of players are probably going to be a little confused as to why Chloe's so aggressive and hostile when the scene itself doesn't really do the best job of conveying why she is feeling that way.
Yeah, especially because it's coming off the back of her going and having this great night out and like sneaking out and doing this thing. It's not like coming from a place where she's just been, not allowed to do something, where she's got some genuine frustrations and genuine, like, anger building up. It's like she's just gone out and, like, partied all night and come back, and now she's shouting at Joyce. It's like, that's a bit of a weird flow of things, I guess.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of people try to suggest the idea of, like, well, Chloe's just a teenager going through some difficult stuff, and that in and of itself is already, like, that's the only whatever context you should need. And I disagree with that. I feel like if you're going to build an entire scene, technically two scenes in a way, if you count the Joyce scene as one and the David scene, whatever.
Right.
That whole, like, sequence within the house, like, I feel like you've got to be giving the audience context, and there has to be a purpose that is being expressed through it. Right. I don't know. I felt like there just need to be more context as to why Chloe was feeling the way she was, why we're supposed to be feeling what Chloe's feeling, and that scene just kind of didn't do a very good job of that, I think. But
yeah, I think it's...
Yeah, it kind of didn't go beyond the sort of, like, teenage angst. I mean,
yeah.
And it could have.
It could have.
Because, Chloe's dad died. That's a big deal.
Exactly.
His best friend left. That's a big deal,
Yeah.
And then David, that's also a big deal. So there's all this stuff, but they kind of leave it at this sense of like, oh, she's just an angsty teenager who fights with her mom. That's what teenagers do, which is true, which is totally true. But there was more going on in her situation. You're right. They didn't highlight that.
Yeah, I think it's something that could have been highlighted in the previous scenes more. That like that's that she was really in this place of frustration and sadness still, and it's like you get some of that. You do get definite moments in the game of real despair and sadness, especially later on, like in the junkyard. You really feel that in a very raw way, but you don't open the game with that. So if you are a player who has no other context for this, if you've not played the first game, and you go into those first scenes, there's not that sense of, wow, this character is really hurting, she's really sad. It's just, wow, this character is edgy and wants to go to a show, and I don't feel like that emotion comes through early on enough, maybe. I mean, I don't want to sound like super down on it, because I think it does come through very strongly later on, and I love the fact that this game is tackling those kind of issues at all. I think it's, to see games that are doing this is just brilliant in itself, but it could have been clearer earlier on, I think.
Yeah.
Let me ask, do you guys think that there are people playing this game who have not played Life is Strange?
Maybe not
a few.
Many at the moment, but I think you're going to end up with people further down the line when this is on sale or whatever, when this is a bit cheaper, that are more likely to get into it before they get into the other game. Because, right now, it's like, it's still a full price. It's not going to be something that someone's going to just like fall into, kind of, out of curiosity. But
yeah, probably not.
I hadn't even thought about that because you guys brought it up a couple times, and I'm like, I didn't even think that anybody would play this, and they haven't played the original game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably coming from some of our context going into this game was seeing people at Square like repeatedly saying, "Oh no, you don't need to have played the first game to play this. You can jump right into Life is Strange with this game," and us both being like, "Wait, what?" But yeah, like, I mean, part of the reason why that confuses me as a concept is it's like, why bother doing a prequel like this if it's not going to do anything that meaningfully changes how you view the first game?
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what they're going for, is they like don't, and they have like, the lead writer of the game has like repeatedly said in interviews like, you're not going to get answers behind like why Rachel ends up the way she does, where she ends up. Like, you're not going to get those answers where that's why it's 3 years in the past, is we don't want to tackle that stuff. Like, that's, we don't want to have this dark ending or like whatever. And I'm just like, okay, then what are we doing here?
Right,
like, if we're not answering these questions, then what are we doing here?
It's frustrating, especially because it's such a long format thing. It's 3 episodes, and it's like, it's not to say that something as a character study or as a reflection on depression or like teenage mental health issues or something like that can't have value.
Yeah.
And you can definitely do prequel things like like The Last of Us, like Left Behind.
Yeah, Left Behind.
Where it's like, you know what's going to happen, but it's still fantastic and it's still very emotional and you get a lot out of that, despite not really getting...
Things that happen... Well, I guess for context, Riley, have you played The Last of Us?
Yes.
And I assume you've then also played that prequel thing, Left Behind.
Yeah, the Left Behind.
Yeah. So I mean, this is Life is Strange podcast, so we won't... we won't give away anything, but... I felt that prequel did such a good job at being a prequel because it included events that Ellie's character refers to in the main game. She refers to these things that she used to do in the past. And the prequel does, it checks those boxes, but it also gives you new context and new events around those things that help change the way you think of her character in the first game.
A big reason that works so well is because of the way it's interlinked with, it's stuff that's during the main game. You get this extra section of that alongside this flashback kind of stuff, and then it shows you the relevance of that to Ellie as a character.
Right.
And that all kind of gels really well.
It does.
It's like Before the Storm doesn't have that, context within Life is Strange. It's not, no one's having a flashback from during the events of Life is Strange. It's completely separate and completely
separate. It's just like in the past,
I think it struggles at points to find that link. Like I got a lovely message from one of the Deck 9 team about, the comic that I drew where I was trying to, through a dream sequence, link those two games a bit more. But like, that's a real thing that they said that they struggled with, is because it's a separate entity. It's hard to maybe know if they're constructing that well enough where it feels interlinked with Life is Strange. And I think that there are points where you don't get that, and then I feel like it does a lot emotionally though to try and I'm trying to think how to phrase this, because I really think that it hits on things, on feelings, for Chloe as a human being that actually do fit into Life is Strange really well. Because when we were replaying with the Japanese audio, that scene where Max and Chloe meet up again for the first time in the car, really was suddenly very affecting. How much your perspective has shifted through
now that we have seen things from Chloe's perspective.
Through actually physically being Chloe in that first episode, I felt really different about that one first scene, because I was like, the first time you play that, you're like, who's this blue-haired girl? Like,
why is she so mad? Yeah.
Why is she so angry? And instead, you're seeing it like, wow, I get it. I feel the emotion, and that's like something that I wasn't expecting to get from Before the Storm at all. Like, I never really thought about that. So just to, because we've kind of been being really critical and stuff, I want to say that's actually worked really well in my opinion, that has, tied in kind of in retrospect, I guess, you know, if you go back and you replay Life is Strange, I think that's a good way of evaluating how well a prequel has done as well, where the kind of good bits of that kind of shine. It's where that makes you feel more layers of emotion when you're revisiting the original canon, and that's like, you know, that's something.
Yeah, at least with relation to why Chloe is just in such a bad place as in general, and then also why she's so frustrated with Max. Yeah, which actually, we should probably have a little bit of a sidebar with the letters, the equivalent of the journal. How did you feel about those, Riley?
They were, like, on the one hand, they're a bit... I guess the first game was kind of unrealistic, too, because, she's, like, going through her day and, like, writing all these letters.
Yeah.
But if you get past that, it was, it was a bit... It kind of tugged at the heartstrings, I guess. All the sort of attempted interactions with Max just really tugged at the heartstrings, and maybe that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
And I think it was at that. And it gives you a little bit of a look inside of Chloe's head and what's going on. It didn't seem like... I kind of remember in the first game, when Max would write her journal entries, it would usually, like, tell me more than I maybe already knew.
Yeah.
I can't think of any examples, but I feel like they didn't do that as much in this game.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more like, okay.
I feel like it gave you more, like, because Max as a character is quite meek.
Reserved,
quite reserved. Those journal entries gave you a bit more of
who she
her
is,
opinion of how she felt about the events that occurred. So you'll see things where she'll talk about, I don't know, about Chloe and about, like, wanting to kiss Chloe again and stuff in that like moment when she comes back in episode 4, stuff like that, where you start to get these just extra little bits of like, oh, okay, so it adds on to how you are already perceiving her as a character. It's like, oh yeah, so she does feel like this, or like about Warren, she's just kind of I feel a lot more negative about him in the journal, a lot more like just I don't know, about all this like going ape stuff or whatever, and you get to feel like, oh, she has more of an opinion
than
she's
she
just
actually expresses.
Yeah, she doesn't really have that confidence or even sometimes option to express those opinions in the conversations that she has. So I do feel like it adds more in Life is Strange than in Before the Storm. It just seems to be a bit more like, it's kind of to the point.
It's like kind of like a recap, yeah.
It's kind of like Chloe just being like, yep, this is how I felt. Hey, Max.
Fuck everyone.
I'm still annoyed, I'm still sad, I'm still, we're still not here. It's like, there's less to do with that. I don't think that's necessarily any kind of complaint on the writing, but more just Chloe as a character isn't as likely to get into, sort of her feelings. I think it's difficult for her, maybe, and also that's why she's writing that to Max, because she struggles to express those frustrations.
For me, something that was really weird about those letters was just how angry at Max they are. Because, like, on the one hand, I like that, because that seems to be setting up this, just kind of trying to convey to the player, this is why she's so angry when Max comes back, because they were really close, and that really did hurt her a lot to have that connection just kind of severed without any real resolution or without any knowledge that Max was ever going to come back into her life or anything like that. And I like using those to see what kind of pain Chloe's going through, having her connection from Max broken off. But on the other hand, it's really weird to be playing a game where the protagonist is just like being really, like saying these really awful things in some cases about the protagonist of the first game, when the protagonist of the first game is in no way present. It just feels kind of weird to me. So I am curious as to where that's going, because I feel like there's so much negativity in those letters that there's something, like, I'm hoping that's going somewhere.
Yeah.
One thing that was interesting to me, because I know in the first game it's totally unclear why they lost touch with each other.
Yeah.
And I know that I kind of thought, well, it takes two to like keep going. Maybe they both kind of broke up. And then in this game they make it like clear right from the start that Max is like for some reason not responding to Chloe's text, and it's really kind of weird. It seems out of character for her.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a bit, it was nice that it was ambiguous and Life is Strange, and it was that sense of like, you know what, sometimes people just, you'll have a conversation and then you just won't have another conversation again, then it feels like it's been too long, or you're not sure if that person's
and then both
changed.
people just feel kind of awkward about it.
Yeah, that's very natural, but instead there was this, like, where Chloe was still prompting, trying to get in touch with Max and be like, hey Max, that kind of thing, and then Max hadn't replied at all, and it felt, it's like, hey, now you can blame Max. Now Chloe blaming Max is justified.
Yeah. It ends up feeling a little bit artificial to me, but I mean, part of that is that whatever even now, we still have no idea what Max's life in Seattle was like. Yeah. We have no idea.
That's something
whatsoever.
Is in some ways more of an interest, was always more of an interest to me than Chloe's life in Arcadia Bay, I guess. I kind of want to see both, and not all either.
That's something that I expressed leading up to the release of this game. Was I feel kind of disappointed. I feel like there's kind of a missed opportunity where they could have shown both what Chloe is going through and what Max is going through, because I feel like if they had gone with that approach, a lot of my issues I'm experiencing with this prequel personally, I wouldn't have, because I'd be getting that balance of both of those two characters. You could very easily tell a prequel with both of those two characters leading up to them reconnecting.
Yeah, and that would be interesting.
And have that feel edifying with the first game, given how the first game, where they reconnect with each other. We also literally don't know anything about Max's life in Seattle, so that would open up actual avenues of exploring her character and maybe exploring why she is the way she is when she comes back to Blackwell.
Much so isolated, because when she comes back to Blackwell, she's like, I want to stop being this kind of really reserved, no friends, kind of, whatever. Even though that she had some people in Seattle, and we've got photos of it.
Yeah, and why did she go back to Blackwell in the first place? Because the reason she moves to Seattle is because her parents moved, so she has to move with them. She moves back to Blackwell because she wants to, and we don't. The game, even now, after all of that whole game is said and done, they never really go into why she did choose. She's just like, oh well, the school had photography stuff now. I'm sure there were better schools for photography.
Well, I feel like it's supposed to be Jefferson, but then that feels weird, because it's why is Jefferson this renowned? He was just a model, a fashion photographer. That's what it seems like. Maybe he's slightly gained a bit more fame since then, but I don't know, there's something a little bit, there's so much that you could explore with that, and so, that you could draw cool parallels and stuff and keep that momentum going.
Yeah, that could have been really interesting.
And I feel like they've opted not to do that because they want to tell this specific story about
Chloe and Rachel.
About Chloe and Rachel, but also, because Rachel has this kind of mystique around her, but also, that Chloe is in this place and they want to explore that. The themes surrounding Chloe and her depression and her dealing with, her dad's death, which I feel like on the surface that sounds good, but then it's this, where we're getting into that, it's actually this doesn't have as much to explore and needs padding with kind of, extra stuff that, might
be detracting, I feel like we should come back to that in a bit. But since you brought up, which we haven't actually talked about it yet, the relationship between Chloe and Rachel, the two main characters of the story, how have you felt about that so far, Riley?
Really mixed feelings about it. I'll say, so one of my friends on Facebook, she posted a really just super mini review of Life is Strange Birth Room, and she's like, I'll give it 8 out of 10. My teenage self will give it 11 out of 10. And I'm same, totally. In a way, it's it's so much fun to kind of, it's back in high school and there's this girl and oh my gosh, she likes me and all this stuff. And it's playing as that is genuinely kind of fun, but when I take a step back and think about the relationship, I really kind of don't like it, because we already know things about Rachel. Chloe can already sense, she seems like she's kind of a liar, and she, she has a different personality around everybody.
I did like that. That Chloe can tell that.
Yeah. And if we didn't already know how things kind of turned out with Rachel, that she was lying to Chloe, you know, we could maybe think, well, maybe give her more of a chance or something like that. But you know, we kind of already know where that's going, and it seems, I don't know. I'm really kind of, I don't feel great about their relationship actually.
Yeah.
Nope.
Same.
Nope. I think it's really interesting. I find it strange that people can be so into it, because I just, like, one of the reasons I love Life is Strange is the dynamic between Max and Chloe.
Yeah.
And that kind of old friends that have been reunited, and then just the difference in their personality and how they work together and how they kind of bounce off each other. That's so exciting just to explore in, you know, any kind of fiction. There's, you know, different books and series that kind of have similar things where, you know, I'd be like, this is something I like. I know I like as a trope. I like that. But I don't get that with Chloe and Rachel at all. Like, they don't have the same kind of dynamic, and that doesn't intrigue me the same. It's like, yes, if I hadn't played Life is Strange and I just played this game and I'd been younger, I probably would have been like, oh, this is exciting and queer and awesome that they are telling this kind of story between two girls so overtly, you know, they're actually letting me pick options, like, you know, to openly flirt with her and, like, do all that stuff. I would have been really excited just about that as a thing, but I think because we've got that contrast with Max and Chloe, it makes me go like, wow, you know, I really wanted to see Max and Chloe have that kind of, you know,
I think like what it is for me is like with Max and Chloe, they kind of fought a good amount. You know, Chloe was mad at
right. Yeah, it's that openness.
But you know that deep down they love each other.
Right.
You know that they have this deep history. With Chloe and Rachel, it's kind of like, you know, it's this surface, you know, it's this excitement. They're kind of intrigued by each other. They have this surfacing, but there's nothing. They have no history. They literally just met. They started hanging out. You know, so it's like you never get this feeling like they care about each other, which I think is really important to like become invested in a couple. You know.
Yeah, and I do get the impression, based on multiple little things in this episode, that it is intentionally exploring this idea of this person who just kind of pops into your life all of a sudden, that you just are drawn to like a magnet.
Change so much for you,
and they can change a lot.
But whether that is healthy or not is the question, and whether that is something that's sustainable is also the question. So as long as they continue to explore it in that way, I'm still excited to see that play out. I just don't get into it the same way that most people do. I don't know.
I've run into some people who are like have said like they're already like they like this relationship more than Max and Chloe. Like one episode in, I'm like, really? How? And I mean, I think part of it from my perspective, I mean, even trying to ignore everything I know about where things end up and what we do know about both of these characters, even if I try to ignore all of that, the dynamic of their relationship just feels too easy, too simple. Like it's, and I mean, I think this does play into maybe what they seem to be getting at with Rachel's character is like that she seems to have extra motivations other than just, you know, that she likes Chloe. I did like how by the end of episode 1, Rachel kind of in a roundabout way kind of confesses like the reason why I skipped school with you was because I could tell that you're a badass and I wanted someone who was a badass around to help me feel better, you know, while I was trying to snoop around on my dad or like whatever. I was like, oh, okay, now we get that kind of extra. I mean,
I get why she'd want another person if she was going out and going to like around country parks and stuff by herself. It's not always the best thing to go alone. As a woman, as a girl, to be walking around the place on your own. But like, you know, that's still,
there was an interesting video essay we watched, like a week ago, where someone pointed out, analyzing the game very mechanically, but pointed out that they were frustrated that no matter what you choose in Chloe's interactions with Rachel's never mad at you. Whereas in the first game, even from like that first conversation, a lot of the things you say, Chloe is mad at you.
By the end of episode 1, you can genuinely piss her off, or you can make her happy, like in a significant way, where she'll have a different kind of tone of conversation with you.
And even if you make the bad choices that make Chloe mad, you don't fully lose that sense that Chloe is happy that Max is back. And if you make the good choices that make Chloe happier, you still don't lose that sense that Chloe's still frustrated by the fact that they were, disconnected for so long. Whereas with Rachel, I didn't get any of that. It was just like,
like to her in the game, she just finds it kind of amusing and intriguing. Like no matter what you do,
it just Like, I mean, I do like by the end of the episode that they do have conflict, but then it gets resolved too quickly. Yeah, it's not interactive, and it gets resolved too quickly. So I am hoping that in episodes, like, I guess really what I kind of hope for is that by the time we get to the end of episode 2, there's some kind of meaningful conflict between them that isn't resolved, and then that's our stakes for episode 3, is trying to, resolve that between those two.
Yeah.
I mean, not even necessarily like we're not going to be friends, and then, we are going to, like, not necessarily like that, but hopefully something more subtle than that, I guess.
But Rachel's going through something, and it's like, can Chloe really help her with that?
Right.
And that kind of feeling of, they've both got issues, and those need to be explored and pitted against each other.
Yeah.
Somewhat, rather than just having the stories be separate, like on parallel train tracks.
Yeah.
I kind of hope that there is a story, just beyond their relationship. And kind of thinking about it, it could be on paper. Maybe you think, if we make a story about a relationship, it'll come through stronger. But maybe if you make a story that's about something else and see how the relationship goes, through as they go through that, it's actually
right. And that's
really
that is definitely one of the reasons that relationship draws you in so much, because it kind of catches you off guard, I guess, because you're playing Life is Strange for the mystery or for the time travel or for whatever else, and then it's like, oh hey, but this has two awesome characters, and they have this really strong bond, and where is this going? Like, are they really going to go there with this? Is this going to, and that made it a little bit more magical somehow than just being like, yep, this is a story about the relationship between two people. We're going to just straight up put this at the front, in the driving seat of the game.
Yep. They know each other for a single day, and they're already crying and having big emotional confessions and all this stuff. It's like, okay.
Same weird tree at the same time at night.
Yep. And we still don't actually know the context for why Rachel's, the most that we really learn is that her dad seems to be cheating on her mom. But there are implications of other things.
I expect that there will be a deeper story going on there with that character, with that other woman, that
right.
We will find some things out that will be surprising.
Yeah, there were also implications towards the end of that first episode that Rachel might live in an abusive household in some way.
It's possible.
As someone who grew up with domestic abuse, that kind of spoke to me a bit in a way I wasn't really expecting. Specifically the ways that Rachel kind of has these quick kind of moments of passion, I guess you could say, where she'll just kind of react very suddenly and very intensely, like the way that she burns a fucking tree for no real good reason.
Well, it's because she wants to see that, I don't know, her trust in her dad has been broken, so she wanted to emotionally kind of do that, and then she has that moment of fuck everything.
But there's, I've already sworn. This is Life is Strange is a game. Life is Strange is a game with swears. This is a podcast with swears.
Cover your ears, children.
I think it's a little too late for that one.
My goodness.
But no, there's multiple instances in that episode of Rachel just kind of losing it for a moment, just for a moment.
She doesn't have that self-control, but and that can be symptomatic of an environment that you've grown up in, or
that,
it can just
be it could be
symptomatic of, it's
because like I said, I've grown up in an environment of domestic abuse, and I have seen how not only how the abusers might act in that setting, but also how the victims might, in turn, as they get older, express symptoms of having grown up during that. I have a couple of siblings who, as teenagers or even into early adulthood, would show those same kinds of signs that Rachel does. So I'm not saying that like that's necessarily what's going on, but I think it's interesting. And she mentioned something about her dad punishing her at some point, which seemed easy to overlook, but was like a huge red flag to me.
Which might be going somewhere, but I think it's also nice because there's it's not nice. I don't want to use that word, but it's like there's a parallel there with Chloe, who has all of these anger issues, and she can be the same. She can have these outbursts very, very quickly, like have this emotional kind of breakdown, and it's to see Rachel acting similarly. It's like, here's another thing where these two, something to explore is how, if they both end up kind of in the moment of real like emotional kind of turmoil, how is that going to play off each other? How are they going to kind of, spark, a fire where Max and Chloe might, not end up like that, in the moments where they are kind of being emotional with each other, that Max is still going to bring Chloe back down to earth. And,
right.
Chloe is...
Whereas if you got two people who just escalate each other, where's that going to go? So, I'm interested to see where that leads. It's this thing about,
there's an interesting idea of like elements being used where it feels like perhaps, Rachel is meant to be like air and Chloe is meant to be like fire, and it's like air is feeds fire.
And Max is earth.
Max is earth, yeah.
Or maybe water.
Earth or water can kind of like dampen the fire, or snuff it, out a little bit. So I wonder if that's going to be more of a parallel, especially, going forward with the vaguely supernatural stuff. We might see some.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, Riley. What were your thoughts on how that episode ends?
Oh yeah, with the supernatural stuff. That was to me was the highlight of the episode. That was probably the only moment where I think I got chills. I was like, ooh, something's gonna happen here. And, so that was exciting, and I really hope that I hope that they highlighted it because Rachel really was causing it, and not just as a cool cinematic thing or something. That is cool because like we kind of talked about, they don't. Not a lot happens in this episode. There's not like there's not a lot
of there's not much intrigue. I think is
so it's like if they do continue with this, it could be really interesting, I think.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different reactions to how that scene, how the episode ends. Like I've seen some people completely dismissing the idea that there's anything supernatural going on, and that it's silly to think that there is. And part of that is because the developers have said there's no, what do they say? There are no supernatural teenagers in this game, I think is the exact phrasing. Which has me, that line combined with that shot at the end of the woman that Rachel's mom was with, smoking a cigarette casually right next to the forest fire, like that makes me feel like maybe she's got something supernatural going on that somehow, like if she was nearby or whatever, I don't know. But, I don't know. So, cause, like you said, like that was like your favorite part of the episode. Do you have any theories about where that might be leading?
Not really, honestly. Like, cause it happened at the very end. There was no explanation for it. There wasn't really much of a lead up to it or anything. We haven't seen the aftermath of it at all. They haven't talked about it. So I have no idea. But I'm just hoping that they do more with that, or just with something like I'm really hoping that there'll be more of a story in this game that doesn't have specifically to do with Chloe and Rachel's relationship.
Yep, same. That's like a big thing after something I was not anticipating going into this episode, because they kept saying we're not going to answer those questions from the first game. Like it's 3 years apart, we're not going that close to where the first game begins, whatever. And then to have the episode end that way, that did really spark my interest as well, in particular because of the prominence of that wind at the end. That really, I guess at this point I kind of have my hopes up that in some way they might try to explain where the tornado originally comes from, because the first game sure as hell doesn't actually explain that. That's like that's my big thing with if I had to pick one thing from the first game I would change, it would be actual explanation or context for where the tornado comes from, because that's not how the butterfly effect works, actually. And so I kind of have my fingers crossed that maybe that might be where this might be leading, And part of that is because the game is called Before the Storm. The platinum trophy for the game is called Bring On the Storm, I think is what it is, which is also interesting to me. And there was like a third piece of evidence that I can't remember now. But yeah.
Yeah, even if they just kind of hinted at it, that, you know, that could be cool, because then we could put the pieces together and be like, okay, this is probably what happened. That would actually be even maybe more powerful than like a direct explanation.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, how could they do a direct explanation? Because Chloe, the story's from Chloe's perspective. So if there's any kind of obvious direct explanation, why would Chloe not have brought that up to Max later on? Yeah. Whereas I feel like they could definitely play things like they kind of do in that scene. Like, Chloe doesn't know that like, we technically don't know that wind is supernatural. There are people who think that it's not. I feel like the fact that they drew attention to the wind and drew attention to Rachel screaming and the wind being in sync with her screaming, I felt like that's a deliberate choice.
It could still be a visual metaphor. I'm like,
it could be.
I'm on the fence. I'm very like,
yeah.
I'd happily see it be supernatural, but I also feel like they could end up doing some kind of, you know, metaphorical thing with that, where it builds up something else. But
that's true.
That story that Rachel told about being in the forest with her dad, and like,
yeah,
I don't remember exactly what she said, but I don't know if you guys remember. But there was something about her like screaming while he was carrying her down, and it was raining or something. Like
oh yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if I could go back and listen to it or something. Maybe I'd have a better idea. But it was something that could be kind of an evidence as well.
Yeah, I could probably try and edit that in, actually. Let me...
I've carried this photo around with me for years. It's from Mount Hood. My dad took me hiking there when I was 10, and it started raining, and I fell and broke my arm 3 miles from the car. I remember screaming like I was going to die, but my dad... he carried me down the mountain.
I think there's a lot that has been left unexplored in Life is Strange, you know, with stuff that wasn't answered, stuff like the whole Blood Oath thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you got to know kind of...
Are we going to learn what that was about?
Right, there's that stuff, a lot of stuff with the whole, like, with the Tobanga, with the sort of Native American sort of, the parallels, they seem to be starting
they still seem to be bringing that back, too.
So, which is interesting, because, you know, that seems like it was a cool little bit of town history or whatever that was going on.
Yeah.
That they didn't quite uncover in Life is Strange, but I'd like to see more of that, because that's always been part of the story, so if they can take that and go somewhere interesting and give an explanation for the storm that doesn't place Max at the center of blame for it, I would come away from Before the Storm very happy, because I hate the idea that Max is responsible and it doesn't make sense. You know, if it made sense, I would deal with it, but that has been such a pet peeve, you know.
Oh yeah, me too.
Following.
Yeah, we are both very salty about that. So yeah, that is one thing that I am hoping for, whether it's tied to how that episode ended or not. I would very much like for there to be some kind of through line into the first game. Some kind of, like, something that somehow connects to the first game in a meaningful way, that connects to Max's character or Max and Chloe's relationship or something. Because if it's just going to be about Chloe and Rachel, I'm really not sure that's going to hold up well enough on its own.
The reveal is going to end up being something about Rachel and you know, something about her life or her choices. That just, it's not going to...
Then why are we playing the game from Chloe's perspective?
No,
yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Which on that note, one thing that, one concept that I've seen brought up also through that one video essay we saw, was someone pointing out...
because you should probably link to it.
Yeah, I'll probably link to it in the description. I should also link to the more positive one, too.
Right.
We oh, you haven't seen the more positive one, you have?
Not yet. We're gonna watch it.
So there's... maybe I'll send you the links later, if you like, Riley, but we watched like a half-hour video critique of that first episode, and then I've also watched like maybe a 40-minute one. And one of them was pretty negative, and one of them was pretty positive. And they both brought up some great points that I agreed with, and they both brought up some points I don't agree with. But one of the points that was more negative that I found really interesting, at least, was they brought up the idea that part of why this first episode of Before the Storm didn't really work for them was that in the first game we're playing as Max, who is this reserved character who is shy and awkward and is trying to figure out what she wants to do with herself as a person, as someone who's about to be an adult, as someone who wants to make friends. And so it makes sense to be playing a game where most of your gameplay mechanics are talking with people and interacting with people. And yeah, obviously you want to try and help people and get on their good side. Whereas before the storm, we're supposed to be experiencing things from Chloe's perspective. And Chloe's character seems to not want to interact with people, not make friends, not get along with anyone.
Interesting.
And yet, despite that, you still spend a decent amount of that episode trying to make friends.
Yep.
And, like, it doesn't really quite match up with, like, that's why it feels so weird, because you have all of these social interactions, but, like, a lot of your decisions are be a dick or be a dick in a slightly different way. And it's like, why am I playing a game that's about dialogue choices?
Right, but then everyone also ends up kind of befriending
her anyway.
And it's so weird, because when it's supposed to be like, okay, this character is depressed, she's in this like really hard to deal with state where people are like, I don't know how to interact with her because, you know, she's depressed and her dad died, and, you know,
yeah,
I know that feeling of like being in a really bad place and then having people who kind of not know how to react to you.
Yeah.
It's just, it sometimes misses that sense and just ends up feeling like Max interactions sometimes, I think.
Right. Whereas you're supposed to be a very different person.
Yeah, you feel like other people should, you know, the other characters need to respond a little bit differently sometimes.
Yeah.
Like be a bit more like, hey, you know, not sure what to say in response to your kind of awkward or confrontational manner, Chloe.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because then you have characters like Justin who clearly were friends, you know, with Chloe and are still friends with Chloe later on.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like we should see more of that, more of the people that Chloe did get on with.
Because Chloe obviously seemed to get into the punk skater kind of...
Yeah, which was apparently through Rachel, right? Because you know, when you talk to Justin in episode 1, he's like, hey, we used to hang around with Rachel and her blue-haired friend.
Which is, somehow, that's an inconsistency in the first game.
It's a wee bit weird, but I think stuff like that, maybe we will see more of that in, you know, more of like Rachel trying to sort of bring Chloe to people. That would make sense, you know. Having a scene where you have Rachel and Chloe and someone else, and that interaction is being fueled by Rachel and stuff. That makes more sense than these interactions with Chloe and.
And I feel like we would ironically be learning more about Rachel's character if we were seeing them in a group setting rather. Like, I mean, now that we have seen them like alone,
because you have to establish that first,
right? Yeah, as the control bait,
right.
Yeah, but what else did I want to talk with you guys about? How did you feel, Riley, just in general about the like visual audio presentation of this episode?
I didn't think like too much about it actually. I remember you brought up the camera angles, and then when I was going back to replay some of the scenes, I noticed that too, and that was really good. You're right about that. That was an improvement, I think, over the first game. It was a little bit of a different visual style to the first game, which I don't know. I guess I like both. You know, this one's a little bit more like cartoony and less kind of.
Yeah, we noticed that too.
It's a bit like The Sims or something. It's a little
yeah. And then as far as like the music goes, that's something. And as much as I love Daughter, and I think they did a good job on the soundtrack, and then I think you brought up too, Desma, that the whole episode was kind of just missing music.
Yeah, it was very quiet.
With Life is Strange, like one of the first things when you have that opening scene with to All of You, I think this is the song that plays.
Yeah.
And it's just like
that's a strong, really strong opening.
You know, and there weren't really any moments like that for me in this whole episode. Even you know, the ending montage was weak compared to like the Life is Strange montage. I think it was kind of short. It didn't have a lot of impact. So I guess more with that in the next 2 episodes. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, because like I've gone and listened to the soundtrack because they've posted the soundtrack, and I like a lot of the soundtrack. But
it's really good. But there's not as many songs as there were in, you know, just kind of instrumental, sort of low key kind of songs as Life is Strange had, and then also there was a lot of just kind of noise in the environments in that game. Like, you know, you start episode 1 of Life is Strange and you're in a classroom full of people and there's chatter in the background. There's the you know, the the bell ringing, and then you're in the hall and you're listening to the music, but there's people there chattering as well, and then you're like in the bathroom and you still have this ambience, even though it's quiet. So the really quiet moments are much more like separated. You generally have a little something, some kind of just chatter or sound effects. And the first episode of Before the Storm really missed that at parts. Like it was very, very quiet. Like, and even because you go straight into that middle scene and you think that has noise, but it doesn't stand out to me. The music from it doesn't really stand out to me as like it's sort of just generic punk noises. I don't know. It's like it doesn't really kick in with the soundtrack until really far in. Like when you get to the train scene, that's the first time you have like a nice kind of song
that was nice.
That starts, and then you have in the junkyard again. You have that kind of build up of music, and then one more at the end. But that first half of the episode is really lacking in music. I think in music that has character in the same way that like To All of You was such a strong way to start, and then and then the little kind of bits of more ambient sort of instrumental. I really like Jonathan Riley's like soundtrack. I just think again, Daughter's an amazing band, but it's like it's a bit more condensed, I feel. Whereas Morelli's soundtrack is much more spaced out. It gives you room to breathe. It's very, and it gives you this specific kind of balance between nostalgia and this ominous kind of sound as well that some of the tracks have, and that's like my take on why, at least with this first episode, a lot of it is lacking music is because they wanted the parts that did have music to have more weight, and I felt like that was kind of mixed. I can see that, like the certain scenes, like the junkyard scene, that like the way that builds up as she's getting more and more.
I felt like that worked.
That worked really well, but it's. I think it needs more. There's definitely points where it felt like adding more noise or more music would have helped a lot.
But, kind of to give it more character. Life is Strange had so much character. I think in large part because of the music, really.
Yeah.
I just thought of this now. Like it kind of seems to lack its own character in that way. Like, and I don't think it should have the same character as the first game because it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not Mac.
It's not Max. It's about Chloe.
And I do think those songs, the Daughter songs, they have character, but it's just not as present throughout the whole episode
while you're playing it,
right? Because if you look at any episode of Life is Strange, episode 5 I think has less of this, and this stood out to me when I was playing episode 5. That the music is very ominous all the time. When you have moments of music, it's like it's very somber or it's very ominous, and you feel that lack of that nostalgia, that lack of those moments of like, oh, this is that nice feeling this game gives me at times. This kind of slightly wistful feeling, but still And that lack of that is noticeable. So it's noticeable again in Before the Storm. Like it just the character from the soundtrack that Daughter did just doesn't carry it all the way through the episode. But I think that's because they only have so many songs. They only had so much time to create a soundtrack and only so much they could do. Especially because they probably didn't have the finished episode to like work on the music.
Right.
They probably had to create these tracks based around feelings or based around certain words or ideas for scenes. And that's kind of like, maybe that's a challenge, and it's I can see how that wouldn't be achievable necessarily.
From a visual standpoint, you mentioned it already, the camera angles. Just. Great. To reiterate my thoughts on that, we've been replaying through the first game over the past couple weeks, and it's not the first game does do a few experimental, interesting things, but this one episode, it's a lot more noticeable, and I felt like it makes better use of the medium to do that, especially when you're having conversations with people, like while the game is waiting for you to make a decision, for example, it would do more dynamic, interesting cuts, sometimes in ways that would actually enhance the thematic significance of a scene, which I thought was neat. I also liked, obviously, the facial animations, like the lip syncing and the facial animations definitely they are noticeable. Specifically, the lip sync.
Right, that's so
very
so
noticeable upgrade from the first game.
Yeah.
There were even moments, even just in this first episode, where I felt like they were able to convey things without dialogue, just through the expressions. Like there were a few story beats where you saw an expression and you know it was a moment of humor or it was a moment of sorrow or whatever, and it just
this kind of reaction.
Yeah,
you'd have moments like that were inadvertently a reaction sometimes in Life is Strange, where it would be a bit funny when it wasn't meant to.
When it wasn't meant to be funny, yeah.
You know, that was such a drawback sometimes.
The actual like visual design, I guess, or the art style, I guess I would say, is, especially now that we're replaying it, and we're replaying it on PC, and my PC can actually run it at full settings. So yeah, so like it is actually really nice replaying that first game with like an upgrade, basically like an upgrade to the visuals, because the frame rate's smoother and I can see more detail in the painterly textures that they made, and I can appreciate the lighting. Man, the lighting in that game, in the original game, is good. The lighting in Before the Storm is not as good so far.
Yeah, I think it's that the engine difference is the main reason for that. They just can't quite, it's not built in with quite the same kind of lighting. But yeah, I really was worried when I first saw the screenshots, the leaked screenshots from Before the Storm, that it didn't feel like it had the same level of like texture, detail, and the same kind of mood from the lighting, especially that one with the crow, I think, or the raven. That just didn't feel very Life is Strange, and I felt, actually seeing it in motion, it works better, but it's still a little bit of a downgrade, I think, for me. Just the overall visual style, I think Don't Nod are just particularly good, at what they do when it comes to art direction and art style. And it's so, like, those specific artists, I'm just so fond of, like, their work that it's noticeable to me. I'm probably on a level that, it isn't for everyone.
I've come to, over the past, year or so, I've come to appreciate the visual design of that game more than when I first played it.
It is something special.
Which does not usually happen. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's because it's impressionistic, and, you can't just emulate impressionist styles. Every artist who has that kind of impression style has their own little, voice in their brushstrokes, and you can see the difference between the couple of people who work on the textures for that game. That it's like, I think Deck 9 did a pretty decent job at kind of recreating that, but still on a higher level, you can tell, and that's something that it's more like, I'm looking forward to Don't Nod's work going forward. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. That's something where it's like, you know what, I'm just a fan of those artists, so I can't critique, Deck 9's work on that, because they've just tried to, make it feel like a Life is Strange game, and they did a good enough job at that.
Yeah.
But I think there's things about that texture work that it's lost something, especially with the eyes. I feel like that was
I was going to bring
something
that up,
was, they were more expressive in Life is Strange, that the reflectiveness and just the kind of textures in the eyes felt more, you were like looking into a soul, I guess, which sounds really pretentious, but whereas in Deck 9 stuff, it's like, it's more expressive, it's more like, you have more flexibility.
It's more animated.
Well, yeah, with the animation, but there's a loss of like that feeling.
There's a trade-off.
Yeah. That feeling of them being alive, it's more cartoony.
Yeah, there's, because again, since we are replaying it with, max settings on PC, I'm appreciating it's been interesting because I've been simultaneously appreciating how much work Deck 9 has put into the facial expressions and the lip sync, but also appreciating what Don't Nod was able to do with the eyes in the first game, because the eyes in the original game were more expressive than I remembered them being, because I'm used to thinking of things in a more animative way, I guess I would say, but the first game manages to do, even though the lip sync is not really that good in the first game,
and it is off-putting sometimes.
It can be off-putting sometimes, yeah. Between, at least with the main characters, between the voice acting and the ways that they were, I don't even know how to explain just the ways that the eyes are portrayed in that game. They just feel more they have a certain kind of impressionistic realism, I guess. Is that
quote that Paxton Rock episode?
Oh yeah.
Windows are the eyes to the stores.
Windows are the eyes to the house.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely there's something you can do in, like, you know, when you're painting or drawing where you don't have to, you know, you can draw just some eyes and get the full emotion of a character or a person without drawing the rest of their face, because, you know, eyes are so expressive.
Yeah. There's I guess the way I would compare the ways that the eyes are animated differently is in Before the Storm they're more animated, and I feel like in the first game they're more like subtle. They're more like realistically.
It's a subtle emotion, but
there's a subtle depth to it.
There's things like there's the reflectiveness. You can kind of feel like when they're crying, the like water, you know,
even if
not just under the eyes, but like in the eyes themselves, you know, you can feel that sort of.
And
that's
like right beneath their eyes gets like damp.
Yeah.
And their eyebrows actually animate more than I remember in the first game too.
Right. They definitely do.
Because it's more subtle. Like because you're not. Because normally when you're watching an animated thing, you're looking at the whole face animated.
Yeah, it's not... and you can push that, when you have that freedom of facial animation, you can push it just too far. You can end up with, like, kind of DreamWorks type, you know, goofy things going on, and it's you know, you have to restrict yourself, I guess. But I feel like a combination of what Deck 9's doing and what Deck 9 did with the...
Yeah, what I would really like to see going forward is with Life is Strange 2, I would love for it to have that same type of art style as the first game, but taking a page from what Deck 9 has been doing with the camera angles and with the lip sync.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get that, but that would be nice.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see, because I feel like Don't Nod is very, like... I don't know if they'd want to be looking at Before the Storm and taking things away from that, or if as a team they just have a clear vision of how that
we will see. Well, we'll probably get an idea of it based on how Vampire turns out.
I guess, although from what we've seen of Vampire so far, it has the same like lip sync issues and stuff. So I'm hoping that the extra time they're going to spend on that game is going to go into better facial animation, maybe.
Maybe. I have seen some people theorize that you know, kind of almost conspiracy theory, like Vampire got delayed because Before the Storm came out. They're like, oh, we got to upgrade our lip sync. I'm like, I'm not sure that's quite going to do it.
That would be the thing to spark that, but I definitely feel like maybe if they have extra time for some other reason, maybe if they can allocate those resources, it would be a significant improvement from what they've got going on in the alpha footage. Yeah, I guess.
Now that we've spent like 10 minutes talking about eyeballs animation.
Oh, that's the important stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, these are the hard-hitting topics that other podcasts won't cover.
It's artistic. You know, you're critiquing. Oh God, I can't say that word. Critiquing serious stuff. It's like
this is a whole this isn't just a 10-15 minute segment about Before the Storm. This is like a whole discussion.
This is a whole discussion about Before the Storm, and that is a significant part of it. Is the visual design of it, and definitely, you know, I think it's interesting the stuff about the like montage at the end of the episode, because I really liked. I mean, that's such a powerful thing, like seeing that like fire burning in the background. Like whether or not that plays out quite as effectively as you know, as the first episode of Life is Strange does. It's because it's not got the right kind of intrigue to it. I think the end of Life is Strange episode 1, it's like you get that feeling of, so Max and Chloe are back together, so you have that standing point of like, right, so they have goals, they're together, something weird is happening, it's like scary and kind of you just have so much just with those two that you're interested in seeing where this is going, and then you get to see one by one these characters, you know,
that we've been acquainted with mostly.
Well, yeah, and one or two that we haven't. Like you see Joyce. You haven't met Joyce yet, but you see the photo of her and Chloe, so you're like, oh, hey, that must be Chloe's mum, you know.
And she's with David.
Right, and like, no, she's not with David in episode 1, she's with David in episode 2.
Oh, really? Does it just show David? Oh, it just shows David hanging up the camera.
Yeah, it shows David hanging up the camera. We've seen David already plenty of times, so that's just okay, so this is this character, and then this is, you know, and it shows each one, and you're like, cool, there's like two that we haven't met, but one of them we know who that is. There's one character where we're like, whoa, who's this guy? Who's is this?
He's
like,
got a dog and
right.
a camper.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Who's that guy?
But it builds up really effectively to like Nathan sitting alone on the bench. But then, I feel like Before the Storm, it just doesn't quite... It has too many unknowns with it. You have too many characters who are like, who... So what's... like, I just don't quite know what story they're setting up, and are we supposed to... It's not like with David, we're meant to be suspicious, and we know...
Yeah.
That this is
you see David hanging up a camera, and you've already had...
They're doing more significant things. It's like there's the thing with Rachel's dad, and then Wells, and and you're like,
what am I supposed to be thinking or feeling about this?
I don't know what.
Other than confusion.
There's no specific feeling there.
Yeah.
And that's weird. And I don't know. It doesn't quite. It feels like it's trying to do something that it doesn't quite hit the mark with. But I appreciate it tries to do it because I do like the sequences.
And I hadn't actually made this connection until just now, but there is a similar through line, which is at the montage sequence at the end of episode 1. It's the snow. Yeah. Everyone is reacting to the snow in some way.
Right.
In this one, it was everyone's noticing the fire in the background
and having a reaction to that. But you just have so. I feel like going through one by one, it's like. You don't know with Chloe and Rachel like what is going on there. You don't know quite what the direction with those two is. How strong their relationship. You don't have any kind of.
They show Steph, Mikey, and then Mikey's brother who was antagonizing Nathan. You're like, so I guess that guy's a dick to Nathan, but he's okay to Mikey and Steph.
What's
like,
that
why?
trying to say? Also, why are they being all kind of like,
and chummy? And then there's a fire.
There's a fire. But then you see the tattooed lady that Rachel's dad was with, and you're like, okay, I don't know what that is. I don't know what's going on with Wells and Rachel's dad. I don't know. I don't even remember who else. And you see Joyce and David, but it's like. There's nothing like when you see them, it's like, so what's this going to allude to? Because like we know,
we already know.
We have no mystery with those two. It's just like, yep, they are them still.
Yep.
I think it starts out. You see Frank. But he's not really doing anything.
No.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is none of them are really.
Those characters. It's like.
Whereas with the montage at the end of the first game, a lot of showing those characters was kind of like implying.
Right, the future, and then you have episode 2 where it's reacting to the Kate stuff, or like, and then episode 3 you don't have the montage, episode 4 you don't have a montage, you don't have another, you have a montage
at the end of
if you
the
sacrifice
ends,
Chloe, you kind of have not a montage, but that, and you sacrifice Katie, you have that music, but it's not a montage in the same way, so you have those two.
And so I think that your point that you just made about that kind of leads into a big kind of takeaway I have from this first episode, which is that while I like a lot of the effort that Deck 9 has put into this first episode, and I like a lot of the things that they've managed to pull off, mechanically, making some upgrades to certain aspects of the presentation to kind of make up for things that they maybe can't quite imitate, whatever. At the end of the day, I'm left wondering what's the point of this so far, because by the time you finish episode 1 of Life is Strange, there are stakes. There are things that are at risk.
Yeah.
The safety of certain characters is at risk. There are, obviously, there's like mysteries to solve and stuff too. Like what's going on with Rachel Amber? What's going on with Max's powers? What's going on with Nathan? There's a lot of questions, but they're not just, we don't know what this character is about. They're somewhat specific questions, like why is Nathan antagonizing these people? Why does Max have powers? Why is Rachel missing? Where is she? There are stakes. There are obstacles that Max as a character that have been established for her that she is going to have to overcome.
There can be no stakes in this prequel because we know what happens.
Right, that's the problem. Is that
we know what happens to every other character really, apart from Rachel.
And so,
we know what happens to Rachel as well.
Right, that's true.
Stuff that could happen,
but they're deliberately trying to set up this stuff for Rachel's character. But on the one hand, it's like, why does any of this matter if she just dies in a tragic way after the fact?
The only characters where something really, surprisingly horrible, not surprisingly horrible, but something serious could happen with, I feel, is Rachel's dad and that woman and basically Rachel's family, because it's like you don't feel like with Life is Strange, it's like, wow, other people could go missing, what's going to happen with Kate and stuff, and it's like,
Right.
This is the present day. In the future, anything going forward could happen, people could die.
Right.
We've just seen someone get shot in the stomach,
Right.
This could go serious places with Max's power. Chloe doesn't have any power, there's no way to undo something if something terrible happens, and we know that certain terrible things are very unlikely to happen because you would hear about them.
Right.
If one of the other students dies, you'd have heard about it, in Life is Strange, because it would have been a big deal.
Right.
It's like, there's such constraint there, and it's like, it's just, by choosing to do a prequel like that, that's it, that's...
The narrative itself is limited
Yeah.
in what it can do. And then on top of that, but still related to it, is Chloe as a character feels to me too similar to who she is 3 years from now. I was kind of expecting us to see a version of Chloe that is closer to who she was in that flashback at the house when they were, 14 or 13?
But more depressed.
Yeah, a more
at that
depressed
point,
version of
still,
that.
Without some of her swagger, with more kind of, teenage...
A version of Chloe that wouldn't be, smooth-talking bouncers into letting a minor come into the club.
Right, which is why I think, when we did the playthrough where we were, failing everything on purpose and being a bit less confident,
yeah.
when I was doing that,
I did kind of like some of that more,
right,
yeah.
It felt more like that was creating a version of Chloe who was further removed from what she becomes.
Yeah, and if the whole concept of the story, if the main center of the story is how Rachel influences Chloe, which makes sense to me given the first game, is I got the impression that Chloe was maybe more of a nerd before, and then her life went to shit, Rachel came into the picture, Rachel influenced her into becoming this more punk,
we're not
hardcore person.
Getting that.
But I'm not getting that because she's already like that. So what is Rachel coming into her life going to change so drastically?
Right,
it's
especially
weird.
within the scope of 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, from the start, from episode 1, you'd had Chloe be significantly, different and in much more of a different mood and a different kind of tone of interactions, then you could end up taking that to a place by the end of the last episode where it's like, oh yeah, you can really feel that progression. You could you could end it with a montage where you're like, oh yeah, you get to see that kind of the way that plays out and evolves over the next few years, next couple of years, and kind of, because I feel like that's what you want to do is leave those characters in a place. You don't necessarily have to do a montage and kind of fill in the gaps, but where you can feel the progression will play itself out.
Yeah.
That's what you want from a prequel, is it for it to end and for you to be able to connect those two dots. That's why I think that you end, Left Behind and The Last of Us. I feel like you finish that prequel and you're like, yep. This fills in.
Connects those dots, yeah.
It doesn't need to show you every moment between then, but that absence in between the two time periods, it's naturally filled by the outcome of that prequel.
Yeah.
What outcome do we think that Before the Storm will have, where that will
Who knows?
will have weight,
yeah.
where that will have
and it's hard. Yeah, it's really hard to think of where this story could end and have it feel meaningful and significant, especially if 1/3 of the story is already told.
Yeah.
And I feel like I still don't really know that much more. I feel like I barely know any more about any of these characters than I already did. So it's not doing that.
I mean, yeah, because there's 2 episodes left to go.
That's true.
I mean, I feel like for me, it's from, if I was writing that game, I would be like, where do you leave this? Where do you take this to in the scope of this game that it feels right, that it feels like you've made a significant emotional journey with that character,
that ties into what happens later, yeah. And something I wasn't quite expecting was, because I already knew I was going to experience that kind of frustration, that when the premise was leaked that it was going to be a prequel about Chloe and Rachel, all of these feelings of what's the point of the story? I already had those, so to be fair, I've already gone into this kind of with that bias. But what I wasn't quite expecting was, now that I've played a full episode, I'm like, oh damn, these guys can actually make good work. These guys know what they're doing. Yeah. I feel a sense of purpose, of intent behind what they're...
But it's also this kind of weird feeling almost annoyance that this is the story.
That this is
they
what
have
they're
to
working
tell.
on,
Like,
yeah.
As much as it can be meaningful, and you know, I'm happy to see these characters again in some ways.
Yeah.
I want to see what they can do with this same format, with this same
with their own stuff.
Yeah, with something new, some new story, something that has real stakes or real kind of, you know, places to go.
Yeah.
That isn't tied down by anything that's already existing.
Yeah, but so there's our rant about that. What are your thoughts? Like, what are your big takeaways from this first episode?
Oh, big takeaways. I'm still really going to keep an open mind about it. You know, there's 2 episodes left. There's a lot more that they can do. I think that, like I said, I was like kind of pleasantly surprised by, you know, how much it felt like a Life is Strange game, and kind of being back in Arcadia Bay and being able to do that kind of stuff. That was really fun. My biggest takeaway, I think, is just to be open-minded about where the story's going to go. You know, I'm not going to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're more salty and critical. So
yeah, it's like I don't want it to seem like we're not.
Oh yeah, no.
I'm still excited to play the rest of it, but it's more of a sort of I just want to see, because I feel like it could go interesting places, but I just don't have the specific intrigue that I maybe would have hoped to have.
Yeah, like we're definitely open-minded. We're just feeling more like I personally am just feeling more like this kind of sense of frustration, just because
we're critical people.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm critical too.
I'm used to episodic stories like this, setting things up in a more clear, deliberate way. And I mean, for all I know, you know, 2 episodes later, when we're done, I might be looking back at this episode and thinking,
like, wow, really
that's
cool.
that's why
stuff
they weren't
like,
delving into this. That's why they didn't explain, like, because I mean, that did happen with certain things in the first game too.
It's
so
likely that will happen here, and I don't want to be too negative about things where it might really surprise.
But this is part of the nature of releasing a game
episodically,
is that your audience is gonna react to certain things in a way that they wouldn't if they're playing it all in a straight shoot.
The positive side of that is you can leave the player with that mystery and that intrigue, and that's why maybe it's a bit frustrating that here you just don't really feel that so much. It's like, if this was just one story, one game, one story, maybe it would be like, well, that's fair, I'm just going straight into that next episode.
I think they have extra leeway too, because you know, it's possible that there's people playing this that haven't played Life is Strange, but I think probably the majority of people playing this game already love Life is Strange, so they don't need the same hook.
Yeah, you don't need to make people care about the protagonist and stuff. That's
people already love Chloe.
Yeah.
Which,
and that's not always the case.
That's not necessarily always a good thing,
right?
But
you do want to. I think it's like you don't necessarily need to put as much effort into it, but it should still be there. You know, you try and do that as a standalone thing, even if it's prequel. You try and I don't know, at least give the player enough information.
Which, I think from specifically with regards to that, I think that I think that they don't have to put as much effort into setting these kinds of things up, like you said, because a lot of people are just inherently invested because we care about this world, because we care about these characters. And so part of what has me feeling much more hopeful about where the story could go is, now that I've played the first episode, I can see these guys seem to have intent. They seem to have deliberate purpose behind what's going on. I just can't see the whole picture yet.
Right. That's a little bit of a frustrating point to be at as the player.
Yeah.
You know,
which is
to
maybe
feel like,
intentional.
Hey, there's more. Yeah, there's more here that we probably just can't see yet, and we probably just can't work out yet or understand the greater context of. But since we're talking about it now, that's, you know, a thing we've got to talk about and kind of complain about a little bit. That it's.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I played the original game in like 2 days. Like, I didn't really find out about it until it was already out. So this is my first time, you know, playing, you know, episode by episode as they come out.
I played each of those episodes as they came out, and I wasn't in the fandom until after it was done, and I started writing All Wounds. So like, this experience has been very different.
That was a lot of, like, as someone, I guess, as the one person who was in the fandom, like, from the first episode, that was a lot of frustration, like, around the time of, like, episode 3, I think, and especially, there was so much weird kind of speculation of where that was going. So many people not picking up on, I don't know, that could be a temporary thing. You know, people just wondering what was going to happen with the ultimate timeline and stuff. There are definite points where the fandom was really like, you could tell people were in a negative place with that game, which is interesting because like, you know, I feel like after episode 2, most people were like, oh, this is really intriguing, this is really interesting. So it's like, with episodic games, there's always that risk of they're not going to leave the player in a place where they feel confidence or certainty, or, you know, especially with the episode 3 kind of ending, people were like, well, what will happen to my choices? None of my choices will matter. And I was like, oh, well, you know, about that. But yeah, I think it's hard to kind of judge these things as they're being released as well.
Yeah.
And that you can end up maybe feeling differently as well if you have that time to be frustrated. You know, I think that a lot of people who just play through all 5 episodes in a short space of time will feel a lot less frustration with the end of the first game as well. That's the thing. So
maybe so.
I didn't find frustration with the end of the game. Although kind of looking back and seeing people's predictions and people saying, "Oh, you know, it was really obvious." Like it wasn't obvious to me. Maybe if I'd had months to sit around and think about it.
That's the thing. If you were, for everyone who had that time, it ended up being. I think they ended up being more critical. Most people in the fan base who played that game on, episode 5, the day it came out and had been following it for a long period of time, ended up being like, wow, I'm not satisfied by that conclusion. And it's interesting to me when other companies are now deciding to release their games episodically. I'm like, the interaction between fans and the product is really intriguing to me. With that shift. I mean,
something in particular with this game too that I think is really interesting in that regard is that they've been upfront since they announced it. You're getting a 3-episode story, and then we're also doing a 4th episode that's not connected to this story, that's more deliberately connected to the first game.
And that's
part of why I'm hoping that the story is going to end with some kind of through line. Because why would you do 3 episodes about Chloe and Rachel, then do an episode about Max and Chloe before all of that?
Pure
if there's not
fan service, it's just
I hope it's not just pure fan service.
Double-edged kind of sword to announce that way, because I don't remember hearing the like, oh, this is disconnected. I just remember it being like, well, this is a optional kind of bonus episode. And that kind of annoys me, because it's like, I like the idea of it, the story going to a place, by the end of the 3rd episode where it's like, okay, now we can skip back and show you some parallels with Chloe, a little bit before. So now we can take you through this short journey with her and Rachel, and then take you back to her and Max and remind you of, why her and Max worked better, or, kind of remind you of the person who Chloe was before she met Rachel. Stuff like that. Where I think, that's interesting. You could do something really interesting with that.
Yeah, we'll see.
It makes me feel more positive about it. But I'm still worried that that's just going to be fan service. That's just going to be one self-contained, let's have fun with Max and Chloe thing. So I'm excited to see.
More like, let's cry about them some more.
Do you have, Riley, do you have any particular hopes or wishes going forward with either that bonus episode or with the other 2 episodes of the main story?
Yeah, I just hope they're interesting.
I
don't. Is that rude? I don't know.
No, it's...
but like, I hope they do something really cool. I hope to play it and to feel some of the same feelings I got while I was playing Life is Strange, which was like, some of the like heart-dropping moments, like, whoa, like they really took it there, or twists and turns, like things like that. I think that's what I'm hoping for in the next episodes.
I am kind of hoping that maybe part of why this first episode doesn't really establish any stakes or any, like, real, like, deliberate conflict is so that they can kind of sideswipe us later and be like, you know.
And if it doesn't happen in episode 2, though, it's probably not going to happen in episode 3,
I'm hoping something happens. Like, I could definitely, I mean, obviously with the preview for episode 2, definitely seemed like there's going to be some kind of dire conflict of some sort.
I wonder though, because it looked a little bit like it was Chloe's room, and I wonder if that like was more of a that might end up being a bit of a cop out, but it's just like
I hope not.
Frank being
like
like,
a dream or something.
yeah, something like that. It's if it was a dream sequence,
How
that would be
would
so.
somebody get into her house? If you think about it, I mean, Joyce is there, David's there, like.
Yeah, it would have to be they were both out, and again, it sounds like it might be Frank, so it could end up just being like him. Kind of, I don't know, having some situation and kind of,
it could be kind of a fake
I feel
out.
like
Just
with the preview for like episode 3, that was the swimming pool, like where it's like they were sneaking around at night, and
there's
they turn
flashlights,
around and there's like this dramatic kind of moment of like, oh no, what is it? And people were like, oh my god, what is going to happen? This
and
is
then you actually
dangerous.
play it,
and it's such a low stakes moment that that's like, I don't trust previews very much.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely we'll see.
They could, because I'm anticipating that they're going to do something with the dog fighting. They've laid so many references to that. And a lot of people want to see the origin story of Pompidou.
That is the only reason I'm playing.
That's the only reason. So like, I'm assuming they're going to do something with that, and between that and we know that Chloe owes Frank money later. So I'm assuming they might do something with that. My prediction would be
but that seems like
Frank helping Chloe repair that truck, which I could have sworn we saw that truck in the junkyard.
We definitely I feel like we see the preview image of episode 2 is them sitting in the truck. So I think episode 2 is going to have Chloe repairing that truck with or without someone else's help. Maybe Rachel will be the assistant, or maybe maybe Chloe knows how to repair that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, they did kind of set up some stuff like that too. So I'm wondering if maybe it's like while Chloe and Rachel are hanging out in the junkyard, something about that truck.
That lends itself to like fetch quests and stuff where they have we have to go home and steal David's tools, and we have to like do this or that.
And maybe Chloe, because she knows enough about those things, could tell, this thing could be fixed.
Yeah.
And I could see them doing some kind of thematic, symbolic thing of like, this truck is broken, but if you give it some love, it could run again. And having it do this thing with like her as a character.
I think it's interesting because maybe that'll be a thing that she like tries to do like for Rachel because she knows Rachel wants to.
Because they want to get out of this
the
city.
At the end of episode 1, it feels like the progression of that might be like Chloe gets expelled or something because of the fire, and then she's like, let's go find a car and let's go just leave, and then something happens towards the end of the episode that's all dramatic, and then suddenly they can't leave anymore, whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, right? It's I think it's an interesting kind of setup.
I kind of suspect that Chloe's not going to be able to repair the truck in like 2 days.
Oh well, yeah.
Like the scene where they're kind of sitting in it, the image.
Maybe they're just sitting in it.
I kind of suspect they're just going to be sitting in it, and Chloe's going to be like,
having a chat.
I bet I can fix this up.
Yeah.
Right.
Talk about going to California, and it'll be this really kind of, heartfelt.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That could definitely be.
Well, because we already know. Well, I mean, based on stuff in the first game, you can figure out that Chloe owes Frank money because Frank spots her for the car or for the truck repairs. She has like the repair bill in her room. So I'm with you that like we won't actually see the truck get fixed, most likely. Or if we do, I don't think it'll be in episode 2.
Well, if they don't do it, like if Chloe can't do it, then it won't. I don't think it'll be.
But I'm predicting something like that. Yeah, and like that's why she decides to invest money into repairing that truck in the first. Is maybe she has some like intimate moment with Rachel there or something like that. That seems like a thing Chloe would do. That's a thing I would do.
Where you end up like collecting some things and bringing it to the thing, and suddenly it's magically fixed. Because video games, that's how that works.
Yeah. Well, there's some predictions about episode 2 there.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's certainly other things one could talk about, but we've been at it for a couple hours, so we've probably covered most of our bases. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Riley, that you haven't gotten a chance to talk about?
So I guess because I feel like I've been kind of critical, and I want to say maybe something positive. I think for me probably the most positive thing for me about this game was how endearing like Chloe was. I think in the first game I was annoyed with her character throughout most of the game because she was kind of this.
She was in a way the antagonist, I guess, without
in a way, yeah.
She was
anti-hero.
very, very angry. You know, you don't really understand why she's so angry and stuff. And in this game, she's still kind of angry, and she's still kind of a broken record about some of the stuff that she says, but it's all just a little bit more endearing. Like, you know, we see the Dungeons and Dragons sequence, which is kind of endearing. She's funny.
Yeah.
I really like that about some things that the first game, I don't remember it being that funny, but this game, like, I was laughing. That was one of the things I really liked about it.
Yeah.
And I care more about Chloe, I think, playing this game. Maybe that was one of the goals that they have, and there's still 2 episodes to go, and I think that's a nice one.
Yeah, you know, I will agree with that, is that I personally just have and I haven't ever really had any real interest in Rachel as a character, because I felt like what we learned of her in the first game was what I needed to know about her, really. So for me, this learning more about her is kind of unnecessary. I hope they are able to do something to make even more of a cynic like me not feel that way. But I do like that they are putting so much effort into showing things from Chloe's perspective. I mean, obviously, like a lot of the stuff that I've been trying to do with All Wounds is I'm trying to tell a story from 2 very different perspectives. So that has been really nice to see an actual Life is Strange game showing things from Chloe's perspective and altering its mechanics in certain ways, and altering its presentation, and altering the types of choices you make to reflect that perspective. I do like that, for sure. It's still kind of hard for me to care more about Chloe than I did before, just, I guess, because of my involvement in fandom creating things, and the whole, just the nature of it being a prequel and me already knowing where Chloe ends up. But I do agree that I think they're doing a good job in general of helping you understand where Chloe's character was at during this period of time. You know, kind of smack in the middle of that 5-year period without Max in her life. So, what about you, Jenny?
I guess I'm just still intrigued by the potential of, you know, going forward to see what Deck 9 do. In terms of the choices and the consequences of those choices, because that was always a frustration for me in the first game. Not necessarily that your choices didn't have, like, major, you know, world state altering consequences, but that towards the end it felt like all of that just stopped having any significance. And I'm hoping that in this game there won't be a situation like that, and that, you know, as the game finishes, you know, all of your choices will still be the choices you made. There won't be a raise, and thus I want to see where they take that, and, you know, how they can build those ultimate kind of world states into interesting variations that still feed into the same Chloe that we meet at the start of episode 1. Yeah. So that's still my kind of the thing that I'm waiting to see.
Yeah. You know. Yep, I do think the way that whatever they're doing with the coding end of stuff, I guess, like you were talking about earlier, it seems like this engine,
it makes it easier, I think, for them to program those things. They don't have to draw these big diagrams every time they have a complex scene, like the 2 truths, one lie.
2 truths and a lie,
Yeah, that scene there seemed to be an example of what they could do, you know, which Dono could also do that kind of complex thing, but you know, every time they'd have to draw up this kind of diagram and code it in a certain way, and I just feel like this program that the software that Deck 9 have created seems like it can facilitate more complex kind of things going on, and more consequences. So yeah, I want to see how that gets used.
Yeah, they have said that they want this story to end in different kinds of places depending on... I'm trying to think of what I read. The implication I got was that they want there to be multiple endings, but not in a binary way, but rather in a way where, like, it's determinate by, like, a combination of choices you've made across the story.
That's my
so, like, rather than just choosing, do you want to be with Rachel or no? It's more like a culmination of, like, how you've been reacting to Rachel over the course of the whole story.
Yeah, which they kind of show at the end of episode 1.
Right.
There's that, you know, can go in, like, four different...
Yeah, there's, like, 4 different variations of that conversation.
Maybe, no, because there's three choices, or 6, maybe?
Maybe.
There's, like, a really good, a neutral, and a bad for each
side.
So
they've already kind of demonstrated that they're able to to do that kind of stuff with the software they're using. So
yep, so that's,
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yep.
That's it.
That's
it. That's the end of what I had to say, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like one thing that we haven't talked about that I feel like we don't necessarily have to, but is the voice actor changes. I feel like we've all just kind of like at this point we're like resolved that just is what it is.
It was an unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
I think that the voice actors have done the best they could, really, and it's you feel that loss of because Ashley in particular is such a good voice actor. I mean, we saw this when we were replaying episode 4, and there was that scene, the start where it's like Ashley just brings that to life. That whole beach scene, she just adds layers of character. Just
at the beginning of episode 4.
Into that scene where you really feel that she's Chloe. She's still Chloe, but this is a different version of her, and just her performance in the first game was so good. And it's not to say that her voice actor in Before the Storm isn't also a good voice actor. It's just there is an essence of that character that's still kind of missing. But it's I think it's it doesn't throw me off when I'm watching it. When I'm playing it, it's not like, oh god, I can't imagine this is Chloe. It's more like, this is Chloe when she's younger, and it's fair, that she sounds different and she has a slightly different tone to things.
Yeah.
I think it's okay, but I still really hope that they can, if they do that bonus episode, they can get Ashley.
They can get Ashley and Hannah back. Yeah, that would be nice. But what about you, Riley? Did the changes in the voices really impact your enjoyment at all?
It probably did a little bit. Like, I think they did a good job. But they didn't do as good of a job, I think, as, like Ashley would have done as Chloe. Because when I go back and listen to clips from the original game, Chloe is more lifelike to me, and I think a lot of that is the voice acting. I think, and like I said, in this game, I think it was good. It just wasn't as good. And there were some, I think I gotta say it, my favorite line of the whole episode. I don't know if you guys saw it. I think you did, because I watched a little bit of your playthrough, where the science teacher, you tell her about something about the lasers. She's like, more lasers. Like, I just died. Oh gosh, that killed me. There were like a few such lines like that throughout, sprinkled throughout. But I love them. I mean, I'm always liking to laugh and stuff, so it's great for comic relief.
On the one hand, not having any of those actors return, I don't think any of them did.
No,
it makes everything.
There's I don't know why I'm cutting you off, but I think Frank was like the one that really threw me off the most.
Yeah.
Because he sounds so different, and because I don't know why I'm so used to Frank's voice.
Yeah, me too.
A certain way.
Yeah. But I mean, the guy, I don't think any of the voice actors that replaced characters did a bad job. I think for the most part they did fine. With the main character, with Rihanna as Chloe, I felt like she did a good job. More when they were doing more emotionally vulnerable part, when she was being awkward, or when she was being really emotional. But when she was trying to be edgy or sarcastic, it kind of fell for me. And I guess that was mainly just because the way that Ashley Birch personifies that side of Chloe.
She has a bit of a kind of cheeky.
Yeah,
not to use the word cheeky.
Cheeky.
She's not like, I'm hardcore. It's more like, I just don't give a shit. But it's in a kind of fun way.
Yeah,
more subtle.
Yeah.
So, a bit more sassy, maybe, I think.
Yeah, whereas with and this might be something that improves as Rihanna has more experience with the character, because that happened with Chloe.
Her,
between episode 1 and you get to episode 4 and 5.
I guess, yeah.
She's more It's more noticeable with Hannah's take on Max, that evolution of the acting, but it is noticeable to me with Chloe's character even. But yeah, so I guess I should probably take the voice acting thing and maybe edit that back before the takeaways thing.
No, it's fine. It's a natural flow of conversation. That's what that is.
Yeah, but because I know obviously a lot of people have their own different takes on that too. But yeah, it hasn't been as negative an impact on my experience with the story as I was worried it would be, because the actors overall have been doing a good enough job. But it does all of my time spent watching footage of the game, playing it, there's always been this like kind of cloud around it that makes me self-aware. This isn't Don't Nod. This isn't the original story. This is like its own separate thing, and that's kind of weird when I'm not supposed to be feeling that. That's not Deck Nine's fault at all. That's just the circumstances.
It's like moral issue as well, especially with the voice, because it's like the voice actors did a good job, but saying that means that you're not giving credit to the original cast, and them, being on strike and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like the whole point is they're not replaceable by cheaper versions of It's like they have value, and I want to
Fortunately, the strike seems to be heading toward an end. There have been terms that have been laid out within the past couple weeks that are going to be like put up for official review by the union sometime this month in October, and it's looking like the strike will be over by the end of October, like officially. That would be nice. Maybe that might open the window to that bonus episode having Hannah and Ashley return. Maybe that stuff has already been contracted and already set up for all we know, like who knows. But at the very least, the strike will be over, so we won't run into this kind of situation with whatever happens after this.
And people got their demands met,
some of them,
better pay, maybe a better quality of, situation going on.
Like in general, because I was looking over the terms, they couldn't get all of their terms met, and that's because from what I've heard from someone who has worked in the gaming industry, who might have experience related to such things, and from people who are voice actors, like I've talked with a number of people about it, and in general, a couple of the expectations that the union was striving for were just not financially realistic, mainly the royalties thing, which is really weird and interesting to me, because that's how it seems to work in other mediums.
Right, but I think it's a bit rubbish, really, when, if you're an artist or a musician, you're getting royalties, why are the voice actors not?
Well, but then that brings up the question, why do the programmers not get royalties?
Well, that also definitely brings that. The programmers work under terrible conditions.
Oh, yeah. So,
worse than, anything.
So, they didn't get that, but from a practical standpoint, it sounds like they're getting most of the other things that they were looking for. Just generally better pay, and then if the game is successful enough, they get a bonus, basically.
Nice.
So, in a case like this game, which is probably going to be successful enough to warrant that kind of thing, But, yeah, so... In general, I have a lot of conflicted feelings over just the way that this game was conceived. But I am glad and relieved that at least the developers behind it have a good head on their shoulders. They seem very understanding of the weight of what they're working on. They have been good about putting in lots of subtle nods and references to details from the first game. They have been missing other details that seem kind of obvious, I guess. Like, certain characters are at the school that technically shouldn't be there. But, so it's kind of a mixed bag with that. But in general, I think that this studio is off to a great start. And regardless of even how Before the Storm ultimately turns out, I am very excited to see whatever they work on after this as well.
They get a chance to do some kind of original project that's, not for another license.
That would be cool, because that's the thing with all of these, story-focused games, that's part of what made Life is Strange so refreshing, is we got,
it was such an unknown, in every way.
A bigger budget, story-focused game, but original property. And, everything else in that level, all the stuff Telltale's been doing, obviously Deck 9 got commissioned to do something already based on something else. It's always based on something else. And I'm really hoping that after Before the Storm is done and Deck 9 has established themselves, that they'll be able to work on something original of some sort. That would be nice. I think that they could really show let their potential loose, I guess. But
Yep, for sure. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, in a couple years when they're ready for that. But yeah. So yeah. I think we might be talked out, maybe. Unless, I don't know if there's anything else you had to say, Riley.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
That's it for now. Yeah.
I'm sure there's other stuff that we forgot to talk
No,
about.
but yeah, we've been on it for a while, yeah. Yeah, but we'll, episode 2 is probably going to come out sometime in October. We don't know for sure yet, but it's looking likely.
Fingers crossed, because then we can play it again.
That would be nice, yeah. So, we're going to try and do this again sometime after episode 2. Hopefully we'll be able to have Kothi join us, because he wasn't able to this time. But that would be cool. We got 4 different perspectives going on.
Yeah.
Then the podcast would be 3 hours instead of...
Well, it's going to be longer than the actual episode.
Yeah. But anyway, so we'll sign off for now. Thank you very much for hanging out with us today, Riley.
Yeah, thank you. This was really fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to whatever musical shenanigans you're up to. I'll be sure to, wherever we end up posting this, I'll be sure to put up, links to the 2 songs you've done for, based on Before the Storm, and then for just in general, your social media. I'll post everybody's stuff that we're working on. We're all Life is Strange fans working on Life is Strange things. So, but yeah. Till then, we will catch you guys sometime after episode 2. Thanks for tuning in, and later days, everybody.